sing. You know more. Why don't you help me cry? Ooh. Thank you.
It's alright if you love me. It's alright if you don't. I'm not afraid of you running away, honey. I get the feeling you owe. There is no sense in pretending. Your eyes give you away. Something inside you is feeling like I do. You said all there is to say. Baby, break down. Go ahead, give it to me. Break down, honey, take me through the night. Break down, now I'm standing here. Can you see? Break down, it's alright. It's alright. It's alright. Break down, go ahead, give it to me. Break down, honey, take me through the night. Break down, now I'm standing here, can you see? Break down, it's alright. It's alright. It's alright.
Early in the morning, when the church bells toll, the choir's gonna sing and the hearse will roll on down to
Okay, well, this is the last module of startups. It's amazing, 2 days have gone by, and nothing exhibits the passion of this country like bullfighting. So we're in the perfect place, and now we're going to have the finalists from the Internet Mass Market Group present. From there, hopefully, we're going to get the winners. And it's my honor to present to you the moderator of this module. Sergio Perez is a telco expert, a serial entrepreneur, and now he is in the department for venture capital at La Caixa. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Sergio Perez.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Are you ready to see a fantastic presentations of the companies, of the startups finalists in the category of digital solution for mass market? So now I'm going to introduce them. First of all, I would like to introduce a company who help us to deal with social advertising. The name of the company is ADS Murai. Please.
Good afternoon. Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Otto Wüst. I'm COO of ADS Murai. Companies, customers use ADS Murai to scale their advertising on social networks. It's relatively easy to start advertising on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, but as you scale your operations, it gets harder and harder and harder. There is quite a challenge to optimize all the targets that you can target with these social networks to specify which is the right budget for your target, what is the right bidding, when is the right timing to place your ads, how do you A/B test such large amount of ads. In addition to that, advertisers have been exposed to a number of interfaces. The Facebook Ads Manager, the new Ads Manager, the Power Editor, the Business Manager, the Twitter Ads Manager, the Google something. So this is high complexity, and these interfaces are usually optimized to the long-tail advertisers. So we have come up with a solution, a simple tool. We've called it Katana. What we do is we interface with all the social networks to help companies create and optimize the ads. We also interface with the actual advertiser systems to do so. We offer SaaS and managed service as a business model. We've been quite successful with a number of global companies. We are really having very good traction. We target 5 million euros of revenues by the end of the year. We did 500,000 this month. We can continue to keep growing because we are addressing a very large market, which is also expanding very quickly. So there's plenty of room for us to grow at very high speed, over 12% monthly growth we are seeing. We're focusing a number of industries, retail, e-commerce, and CPG, and at the same time, a number of territories. We have the right team in place. We are building up this team with new executives. We are hiring, so come to me if you are talented and want to join one of the fast-growing startups in social advertising. What's next? Well, I invite you to come to our demo to see the actual product, to see how we do things. We are very likely opening a round of financing in 2016. So if you're an investor, please come check on us. And to the jury, please take into account our efforts and vote for us to be the finalists or the winners in the contest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Otto. One moment. Judy, do you have any question for Otto?
What you say you're a SaaS company. What do you base your price on? Number of advertisement push, a number of users?
It's a percentage on advertising spend. It scales as a tiered model, so the more you spend or the more you invest into advertising, the less we will charge you in trenches.
Just on that note, what are the gross margins on the revenue figures that you mentioned?
I can't hear you, sorry.
What are the gross margins on the revenue that you displayed?
Well, essentially, we start with 5% on advertising spend for a SaaS model and 15% on managed services model. That scales down.
You work with Facebook and already Twitter, or only Facebook?
We are operational with Facebook and Instagram. We were the first company in Spain to launch Instagram ads. And we are going to be operational with Twitter and YouTube by the end of this quarter.
Thank you, Otto.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Clicker?
Guys, I have a problem. I would like to paint my house, and it's really difficult to find a good painter at a good price. But I think that I have the solution, and the solution is Habitissimo.
Can I have the... Here. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jorge Cienfuegos. I'm Chief Brand Officer at Habitissimo. Habitissimo was founded 6 years ago in 2009 in the construction industry. So let me show you a picture. This picture is 100 years old, but it could be a recent one, since our business, the construction industry, hasn't changed too much in the last century. We at Habitissimo believe the change has to happen, as we've seen in other verticals like travel, like real estate. We want to bring at Habitissimo the construction business to the next level, bring it to the 21st century by reinventing the way professionals and consumers connect to each other, by, for instance, including customer reviews in our profiles, in our professional profiles. So let's see in detail how does Habitissimo work. First, we have a free-of-charge platform dedicated to homeowners where they can get inspiration, ask the community regarding the doubts, and finally find the right professional for executing their project. The objective of this platform is to help homeowners to create their dream home. And on the other hand, we offer a service to our more than 15,000 professionals in order to get new customers. The service is based both on a freemium subscription and also on lead generation. Many professionals tell us, literally, that Habitissimo changed their life because it saved their business at a very difficult time of crisis. So today, Habitissimo is present in 8 countries, in Spain, Italy, and Portugal in Europe, and in Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Chile, and Argentina in South America, which means a huge potential for home improvement, for the home improvement market. We estimate the opportunity in 160 billion euros, and even if in the last years we have new online competitors and a very well-established offline competition, we know Habitissimo will succeed in the home improvement market. Why? First, in terms of traffic, we are a clear leader in every single country, in Spain, Italy, Brazil, and Mexico, and because of our strong and proven business model. In terms of revenue, we're profitable since 2012. We have seen a growth of more than 50% year on year during the last 4 years, and a run rate of 8 million euros for 2015. Then, in terms of diversification, both in terms of countries, we are profitable in every single country, and in terms of source of revenue. We have a good balance between the revenue generated by subscriptions and the revenue generated by the leads. Last but not least, our people, the founders team. We have a good balance between experience into the internet industry and the construction industry. So what are we asking for today? We are forecasting a revenue of 25 million euros for 2018. And for that, we ask for 3 to 5 Series A funding in order to develop our marketing channels and to invest in mobile technology. Thank you very much.
Okay, so now it's time for questions. Yuri?
Hi. Obviously, construction and building people's homes has very big implications. How do you control the quality of some of the leads that you're providing on the construction side?
We control the quality because every single professional pays for the lead, so they try to do their best with the customer. We don't have to go after the client to ask if the service was good, since the professionals are paying for it, so they pay a lot of attention into giving the best service they can, because they feel that they are paying for every single euro they are putting under the lead.
Sorry, what's your acquisition channel for professionals? What is your acquisition? What do you get a professional? How do they know about the platform?
We're starting getting professionals from offline media. The word of mouth works very well, and through associations, for example. But also, our consumer marketing doesn't affect on professionals, since we have been doing offline campaigns. Some of our search campaigns are also taken by professionals.
Thank you again. Why did you decide to pursue home services as a market and not be more horizontal, like Thumbtack in the US, as you mentioned?
The reason why we focused on home services was to have a better control of the quality of the product we offered and a better control on the professional that were offering this service.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now, who in the audience has a child from 2 to 6? Please, up your hands. Okay, so I'm sure that all of you want that your children learn languages, and it's very difficult now. But now we have a company, Monkey Moon, who is going to help your children. Monkey Moon.
Ismanis. She's 3 years old and Spanish like me. You can imagine how much I worry about her English. So I found her some apps to learn it, but she found them extremely boring. That's why we created Monkey Moon, language learning for kids. We launched last year, and we've been having great traction. Over 1.5 million organic downloads and 4 million, including pre-installations, with a steady growth, 10% month over month. Now, the retention rate is also twice the industry benchmark. Look at the App Store. We've been number 1. We're number 1 in the US. We're number 1 in Europe. We're number 1 in Asia. And look at this, because every single product that we build has been number 1 somewhere around the world. I don't think a lot of educational companies can say this. Do you want to know why? Let me show it to you. Does this look like education? This is fun. And I know most of you are thinking, well, is this just another startup trying to gamify education? Well, we are not. What we're doing is edifying games. We're edifying games with the same goal, but a different approach. And with the help of great companies. Like Google, we partnered with them for the last Google I/O and built exclusive content together with Disney and Nickelodeon. Or Oxford University Press, we signed a few weeks ago with them to co-develop an application together. There is more great companies coming on the pipeline, like Vodafone for distribution, Rosetta Stone for co-development, or Houghton Mifflin for content licensing. The kids love us. The average session length is over 3 times the industry benchmark. The industry is loving us. Just last year, Google gave us an award. They say, Best Android App of 2014. Press is loving us as well. They know Monkey Moon is the future of education. Now, our business model is very simple. We have a set of applications, freemium, $3 per app, or a subscription option, where the parents pay a monthly fee, and they have on a weekly basis progress reports and new content to teach their children. Cristobal Viedma, twice startup founder, and I was the head of product at Viki, a $200 million exit. My co-founder, Marieta, she was the founder of a chain of educational centers in Spain and has over 8 years of experience in education. 10% growth month over month and over 4 million installations, we have great traction. With 3 times the industry benchmark in session length and twice in retention rate, we have a great content. But the most important thing, millions of kids around the world are learning a second language now, having an opportunity, bringing the world closer together, starting here right now in Madrid with my niece.
Come on, it's late.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Cristobal. Okay, again, it's the time of the jury. Questions, please.
Congrats, good numbers. Can you be more precise on the retention numbers? You say twice the industry standard, but what does it mean? Like after like a month or 2 months, how many active users do you still have?
It means like when we look at the educational category for kids, it's about like 10% right now, the monthly retention rate. It's very hard to retain children, like when it comes to like, they don't have access to the tablet as much as they want. We have over between 25 to 30% like the next day retentions, or twice, yeah.
How many monthly active users do you have now, and how much time is the average child spending in the app per month, or per week, or whatever?
As I said before, it's over 3 times the industry benchmark. The benchmark is 1 minute. That's the average session length. For our applications, is the lowest one is 3 minutes. The latest subscription platform we launched is 11 minutes.
Can you tell us a little bit how you track the efficacy of the app? How much are children learning, and how is the technology sort of learning from what the children struggle with?
We're actually tracking everything that the children is doing, whether he's like doing the right answer, the wrong answer, how much time they're spending, and so on. We're sending all the data to the back end. We calculate the level, and we adapt the difficulty of the level of the lessons to the children's educational level. And also, we are actually like working with the schools, and we published 2 white papers showing like this works better than traditional methods.
Okay,
thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm using Google Maps, but it doesn't work. Why? Because I'm inside a building. Well, I don't know. I'm going to ask Situm to explain why.
Thank you. So, well, I'm Victor, and I will introduce you Situm. Did you have any problems finding this venue when you came here? If so, I guess that you just open Google Maps and find the directions, and you are here. But do you have any problems finding this stage or any other inside this building? Then you actually had a problem, because GPS doesn't work inside this building, so you can't get directions nor the maps of this venue. So we got the solution for that. That's our indoor location platform. How does it work? First, you just have to upload your floor plan of your venue to our website. Then you have to calibrate, does it walk around with our application? And third, that's the magic. Then your visitors will be able to have a Google Maps-alike application and navigate indoors, find points of interest, and so on. If you are the venue owner, you will be able to access to any kind of data about your visitors. And that's the platform. The market for this platform is going to be huge. There's going to be a growth rate of over 40% for the next years. And the target market that we are addressing is hospitals, malls, and worker tracking applications, which is going to be 3 billion global. Our business model for this is a license. Well, it's a platform as a service model, and the licenses are per venue for hospitals and malls, and per user in worker tracking. What about our competitors? That's the most interesting part. They all follow the law of devices. That's it. The more devices I install in the building, the better it works. But we break this rule. We don't need any devices, and we achieve a higher precision than most of those competitors which need these devices. We will be the Google Maps for indoors. For this, we are mapping the biggest and most visited places in the world. The team behind Situm is a senior business executive, 3 experts in mobile robotics, which are the founders, and a venture capital expert in technology transfer. We are already in many countries, and we have 25 hospitals here in Spain. Indoor location will be the next big thing, as it can be seen by the recent operation by the big players. For example, Apple bought Wi-Fi a year and a half ago. In order to keep playing the first line of this race, we need about 2 million. And that's it. I hope that next time you came to this venue, you can download C2 Maps, locate yourself, and find directions to the places you are looking for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, Judy, please, questions?
Yeah, how does it work? Is it magic? Because you say without any device, you're more precise as the other with device. So what's the magic?
That's the magic behind this. It's a sensor fusion algorithm. It's based on Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, if there is. But the real thing here is our indoor navigation, inertial-based navigation inside the building. We record magnetic field interferences inside the building, and then we record the steps of the people who's using this. So that's why we achieve this precision without devices.
Any other question from the jury? No? Okay, so thank you. Now it's time for a startup who develop a guest experience apps for hotels. The name of the startup is Stay Up.
Hi, my name is Joan Lladó. I am the co-founder of Stay, and I'm here to tell you one story. 6 years ago, my brother and I went to a resort, and we had so much fun. But we discovered how old-fashioned hotel operations are. Let me give you a couple examples. First, you have to do lines for everything and wait in line for everything. Second, you get these brochures that are outdated and that no one reads. Third, when they want to communicate with you, they use paper messages to talk to you. And four, and my favorite, if you ask for any recommendation on destination, they write things on paper maps and give them to you. And we thought we could change all this with smartphones, so we could connect in real time hotels and guests. 6 years later, we're doing pretty good. We are in more than 20 countries, and top national and international companies are trusting Stay as their main mobile solution. These companies belong to a top group, the top 250. But this is just a small piece of the pie. There are thousands of hotels out there that are small chains or independent hotels, and what happens to them? They will all want an app, but there are just too many apps, and most of them are never used. So our guess is that no one will use them. Our solution will launch just one app that aggregates all those properties into one solution, so we can become the guest experience standard. I'll tell you how this works. Every hotel goes to our website, they fill all the information and services, and they publish it to the app. So when a guest goes to a hotel, they just need to open the app geolocates and detects the property, and the app becomes the hotel app until they check out. Now, let me tell you how we treat both targets. We have great companies like Meliá they have their own app on the App Store because of the brand. So they will pay us monthly fees. On the other side, we have the Stay app that will aggregate all those other properties, and they can use our service for free forever. And you might ask, why free? Because we have a vision that each hotel will only have one app access. And thankfully, these great companies are going to sustain our business model because they're paying us increasing monthly fees. And as I was saying, we have one vision that each hotel will have just one app access. And if we become that app, all the other key players in the industry will need us to sell their products and services so we can become a digital hub. And yes, we know it's really tough to become a standard on the industry. There's full of large players. But as you can see, there's a spot on the intrastate phase of the life cycle, and we want to fill that spot. Finally, on the financials, we raised money in the beginning of the year. It's been a great year. We've grown 50%, and we are break-even. But if we want everyone to know who we are and what we do, we need money to invest in sales and marketing. That's why we're looking for €1 million. Thank you so much. This was Stay.
Thank you. Thank you, Joan. So now, time for questions.
Thank you. Why did you choose to tackle this problem in terms of the other startups that you could have started? Why this specific problem?
We've been doing this 6 years, And when we launched independent hotel apps, no one would download them. And people just download apps for the long term. So if you have a Melia hotel, they have 350 hotels worldwide, you're going to keep the app, you're going to use the app. But if you go to an independent hotel, regardless of the quality of the hotel, it's really, really tough to get people to download the app. That's why we think the future is an aggregation app.
Do you plan to make revenue, extra revenue through like affiliation? Because through the app.
I'm sorry, I don't.
Do you plan to make extra revenue through affiliation, like selling extra stuff through the app, or not at all?
I don't understand. I'm sorry. I can approach you if you want.
It's a bit of a related question. Are you thinking about, you mentioned there's so many players in the landscape doing different things, be it reviews or bookings, etc. Do you plan on any partnerships with any of those players or expanding sort of what you can do within the app?
The thing is, there are hundreds of companies doing apps for hotels, but white label, always with the brand. And no one is trying to do the one-up thing. But in the future, we might be able to collaborate with existing players because we can use SDKs, and this service can be inserted into other apps, into other players.
Okay, thank you, Joan.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm sure that all of you enjoyed a lot yesterday in the Soft Sami party. Yes, but all of you know where to go. But sometimes you don't know where to go or what to do. So the next company, Exceed, is going to develop an app for nightlife. And Mattia is going to present the company. Mattia?
Where is it? This one. Good afternoon. My name is Mattia, co-founder of Exceed, and we are a team of nightlife management experts. We answer the question, where should I go out tonight? And to help me explain you why our users log into Exceed every single day, I would like you to think about traveling, or hotels, or even restaurants, and think about how the access to these services has changed over the last decade. Well, there is a huge segment in the entertainment industry that hasn't changed yet. Nightlife. We're talking about people, mostly 18 to 30, that love to have fun, dance, and meet new people. And they all still suffer from the same difficulty of discovering and booking nightlife events. Facebook, PR's local magazine, none of these channels provide a clear and simple solution to the question, where should I party tonight? We believe going out should be fun and spontaneous. For this reason, we have created a website and a mobile app that lets you discover the best events in town, book them in one tap, and cut the line at the entrance by simply showing your smartphone. But there's something more. There is a huge industry behind nightlife events. And although organizing a party may sound like a fun job, believe me, it can be a hell of a nightmare. Your venue can sell out one night and be completely empty the day after, and you have no efficient tools to analyze these results. That's why we've come up with the final solution. We called it Nightcraft. It helps clubs save time when managing promoter, customers, and bookings, gain insights through an advanced dashboard of real-time analytics, and increase profits, thanks to a set of innovative marketing tools. And it is through this nightlife tailored solution that Exceed takes a step away from its competitors' biggest barrier, scalability. And thanks to our freemium model, we're able to lock in our B2B customer at a staggering pace and let them boost our B2C growth by converging their own network into ours. And I won't spend too much time explaining you how big this market is, but just think that a city like Madrid hosts more than 100 clubs and 700,000 potential users. And we are ready to monetize on each and every of these potential attendees. We get per head commission on entries, and we get transaction fee on every single online sale. So at this point, I guess you may be asking yourself, does this really work? Our friends and family, they thought we were crazy. So we started with no initial investment. And guess what? More and more party lovers started using Exceed. Until we closed our 550,000 euro seed round this summer and crossed the 1 million reservation worldwide last week. We are going to change the way people live the best nights of their lives. I promise you, Exceed will become the norm. We have the team, there is a pain, we have a solution, we have a beautiful product, and we have traction. So if you would like to take part in this nightlife revolution, please come and speak with us. The first beer is always on us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mattia. Okay, so now, Julie.
Thank you so much, and congrats on the great traction. A lot of going out and events is about the exclusivity, and sometimes, lines and selling out are actually part of the marketing almost. So how do you tackle that to make sure that you have the highest quality events and availability on the platform as you scale?
Yes, sure. Well, we do a filter with clubs and event organizer to begin with, so it's not an open platform. Every time we open a new city, we first meet with club owners so that we always have the highest quality. This way, we can always offer to our user the best events in town. We're also targeting nightlife only, so it's a niche market, and this way we can always keep the quality high, as we're not getting into bar, pubs, and restaurants. We want to focus on something. People between 18 to 35 go out more than once per month. They need an app to know every time they travel where they can go, find the clubs they like with the music, see if their friends are going, and also be able to access these good quality events in an easy way. So split payments with their friends for bottle service, having tickets and information straight in the palm of their hand rather than having to go in the street and find out from flyers or Facebook. This is pretty much what we're doing.
And on that note, what level of curation are you having regarding the clubs and the parties? Are you rejecting a certain percentage of clubs and parties that you come in contact with or reach out to you?
I didn't understand.
Are you rejecting some of the parties and clubs that you interact with if they're not good enough or you think they're not high enough quality for your audience?
Okay, well, in case the things go that way, we can always take them off from our app, but keep them using our software. So they can keep using all the software solution we're giving, but they do not appear on our app. This way, our final user don't have to be scrolling through too many events, but at the same time, if we're offering, example, a premium solution, they can keep using it.
Okay, thank you, Mattia.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So we are at the end, and I only want to say thank you to the 6 finalists of this category. Thank you.
Okay, well, we now have a special treat. But before we begin, I want to introduce you this person. You see, increasingly, the quality of our lives is a function of the quality of our experiences. And what is one of the biggest experiences that we can enjoy, almost everybody can enjoy? Think about that. Well, maybe not the best experience, but what's a really good experience, especially here in Spain? Food. Spanish food. That's one. Exactly. Spanish food. Well, let me tell you, food is what we're going to talk about. And this gentleman is now working to change the world of food using technology. Now, Ali Partovi is not just a normal speaker here. You see, Ali Partovi came to this event 4 years ago. In 2012, he was our main speaker. And it was an honor for us to have him because we were very small, if you remember, back in 2012. But he said something that stayed with everybody. And that was a very simple message. Try to succeed, but if you're going to fail, fail fast. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not only a good friend of this event, but a good friend of Spain. He came here in 2012, lived with his entire family for a year. It is our honor to present to you Ali Partovi.
Thank you, Paris. Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. My name is Ali, and I'm really excited to be back in Spain. I spent a year living here and several years ago, and I've spoken at this event in the past as well, and I'm really glad to be back. Today I'm here to talk about a new area that I've spent time in recently, which is the area of food and farming. And it's something I started investing in myself about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and I'll tell you a bit about why it's interesting to me and where there are opportunities for the future. So anyone who has spent any time looking at the challenges of the food system knows that we're faced with a very major challenge of how to feed the growing population. And usually the way this is presented is presenting two issues. Number one, that the population of the world is growing to about 9 billion before it begins tapering off. So we need to feed a much larger number of people. And then number two is an increasing consumption of animal protein and meat and dairy that's tied to, in developing countries, as they become more affluent, there's a much higher consumption of animal protein, and animal protein is much, much more resource intensive. It requires far more land and water to produce animal protein than to produce anything else. But I would say there's actually a third challenge as well, which is that as people become more affluent, there's been an enormous trend towards eating more conscientiously. So this is reflected in different ways in the realm of organic food, or in Spain it's called ecológico. Generally, consumers, when they reach a level of awareness of the food system, care about the safety, care about the health, and care about the environmental impact of what they eat. And the true challenge that the food system faces is how to feed 9 billion people, how to feed them a diet that, because of their increased affluence, how to satisfy both their demand for more protein and for animal products, but also their demand for food that is more sustainably raised and more conscientious in a number of ways and more healthy. And the reason I mention these three challenges is because oftentimes there are two competing camps in the realm of food. There's the sort of industrial technological camp that is just focused on more quantity, and then there's the organic camp that is protesting the increasing the industrialization of agriculture and food. And what I would really say is that these two groups have more in common than we might realize. Regardless of which direction they come at to the problem, there's now increasingly a common emphasis on reducing the use of chemicals and reducing the environmental impact and reducing the footprint, especially the carbon footprint of agriculture. And whether somebody is an advocate of organic farming or an advocate of things like biotech, they talk about sustainability as a key goal. And so I would say that for myself, I began investing in food because sustainability was my key interest. And I was surprised and very intrigued to learn that agriculture was one of the biggest contributors, if not the biggest contributor, to climate change, to global warming, and that the greenhouse gas emissions of agriculture and of land use change for agriculture exceeded many other sectors that we traditionally associate with emissions. And so I viewed the space of food and agriculture as comparable to investing in sustainable energy, except with an added benefit, which is that in the realm of food, consumers actually pay extra for sustainable food. You don't generally find consumers paying extra for sustainable kilowatts. The electricity or the gasoline for your car, people are basically purchasing that as a commodity without regard to how the energy was produced. Whereas for food, people are willing to pay an enormous premium for food that is healthier and for food that is more sustainably raised. In the United States, the trend for sustainable and organic food is an enormous trend now. And it's just in the last decade or two, it's gone from being a very small, new niche to being quite mainstream and growing really fast. Surveys of American consumers say that 90% of American consumers want organic food if it were more widely accessible. And in contrast, in the United States, only 1% of the farmland is farmed organically. And that's an enormous challenge, but also an enormous opportunity. And it reflects right now that there's a huge mismatch between the practices today of farming, at least in the US, compared to what the consumer actually wants. So there's a lot of different areas where technology can help improve the food system and to help reduce inefficiencies and to make the system produce more while also producing food that matches the qualities that consumers want. One category for that is in farming, simply finding more efficient ways to deliver nutrients to crops. Historically, fertilizers are an enormously resource-intensive part of agriculture, and the way they're applied is quite wasteful. And there's two different approaches to how to reduce that waste. One is using precision agriculture to deploy fertilizers only where needed, only in the amounts needed, rather than overusing them. And the other approach is the more, you could say, the more ecological approach, which is recycling nutrients, using crop rotations, and perhaps combining livestock with crops as a way to reuse nutrients and to preserve the carbon cycle and the nitrogen cycle rather than having to apply synthetic chemicals. Similar thing applies to pesticide chemicals, whether it's for weed control or insect control. Technology can both help apply those chemicals more precisely and reduce their use, or find more biological ways to combat pests. Another area where there's enormous room for technology to create efficiency is in the realm of food delivery and food distribution. And we've seen this in other sectors. Generally speaking, I would say technology is replacing capital, whether in the case of transportation, such as Uber, or if you look at Airbnb and the way it's disrupted the travel industry. Technology is enabling unused resources to be much more efficiently used and eliminating the need for much more capital-intensive infrastructure. And the same can all be made true for the realm of food as well, whether it's the distribution from the farm to distribution centers or down to the individual consumer. There's a lot of potential for eliminating middlemen and to more directly connect the producer and the consumer, and in doing so, bring down costs and perhaps reduce waste. So the same, has been what Airbnb and Uber have done as well, as eliminating middlemen and more directly connecting, you could say, producers and consumers. The last area I'll mention, and one which I think has perhaps the biggest impact as far as carbon footprint, is in the realm of animal protein. The single most wasteful thing in the food system today is the way livestock are raised, especially in the United States. The intensive livestock business is producing low-cost meat and low-cost dairy, but it's at an enormous environmental cost. And I would also say the costs are actually partly, they appear to be low cost because of government subsidies on grains. And so the actual market cost is higher, I'm not talking about the externalized costs like the environmental cost, but the actual market cost would be higher if there weren't subsidies on those grains. And so there are serious challenges as to whether we can continue feeding a growing population using these methods. I'd say there are two completely opposite ways that technology is helping address this issue. One direction is to find more sustainable ways of raising livestock and to more sustainable ways of producing animal protein. And generally speaking, livestock have always been part of agriculture basically since the invention of agriculture. And livestock, even before agriculture, have coexisted as part of ecosystems, just not under the name livestock. But the animals serve an extremely relevant and important ecological role in any ecosystem. And so one direction is to have farming return to a more ecologically sane practice where the animals are part of the farm, where in addition to their meat or their dairy as the main product, their manure is also being used smartly to refertilize the land. And whether it's via crop rotation or combining animals with, with fixed crops, there's a lot of value to be gained compared to the way livestock are generally raised in America today, where the animals are in a concentrated feedlot and the food is transported to them and their waste product ends up becoming an environmental problem. And so there's enormous efficiency, including economic efficiency here to be gained from a more ecologically sound way of raising animals. The other direction is the realm of protein substitutes. And this is not exactly a new concept, but in the last few years, it's had a very renewed vigor because rather than thinking of it as food for vegetarians or food for vegans, the approaches that some Silicon Valley companies have taken is to say, if you can make a good enough substitute, if it's so good that it's indistinguishable from the animal version, then it could be for everybody, not just for conscientious eaters, but it could actually compete on price with the animal version. And so there's a number of very interesting companies, such as Impossible Foods and Hampton Creek Foods, and a new company called Clara Foods, which are developing either plant-based substitutes for meat, eggs, and dairy, or synthetic protein versions. Now, I think all of these are still a long way to go before they reach, market scale, but it's a very, very promising direction, because if you can give people a substitute that they actually prefer, or that is not just because of conscientious decision, but because it's actually a comparable substitute for the animal product, it can be enormously more efficient and cost less and enable us to feed more people without nearly the amount of resource drain that animal agriculture today costs. So I'll conclude by saying technology in the food system and farming is not a new thing. And ever since the invention of the plow, agriculture has been a major customer of technological advances over the centuries. What is new and fairly recent, I think, is that the way technology is involved in food and farming is much more digital than it ever was before. And so we've had, over the past several decades, since the 1950s and before, we've had an influx of technology in farming that is more chemical and is, almost combating nature, whereas I think the direction that I expect to see over the next decade is technology that is more digital, embracing complexity and using information technology rather than trying to simplify nature, embracing the complexity of nature, and more biological solutions or ecological solutions rather than chemical solutions. And a great example of this is if you look at the transformation that Monsanto has begun undergoing, and it's continuing. Monsanto is historically a pure chemical company, and they have transformed themselves to a genetic engineering company. And then in the past few years, with the acquisition of Climate Corp, they've really transformed themselves also into a software company. And they are, over time, becoming less and less about chemicals and more about using biological methods and information technology to make farming more efficient, rather than the traditional methods of just chemical technology. So I think there's enormous realms for technology to help in the food system, whether it's in farming, food production, food distribution. And I'm very excited to see the new entrants, the new companies that are springing up around us today and here. So I'll close with that. I'm on the very next panel, so if anybody has questions for me, hopefully we'll get a chance to get some answers during the panel. Thank you very much.
Sally? Okay, so we heard about food. Now, the next panel is going to discuss innovation in food. It's amazing how much food has evolved over the last 20 years. But did you know also that innovation in food can help you eat food that doesn't make you fat? Wouldn't that be good? What's the best way to not look fat? The best way to not look fat is to stand next to a fat person. Have you ever noticed that? If you stand next to a fat person, you look fine. So I know you're all sitting down, so it's hard to tell, but next time you stand up, make sure you stand next to a fat person. And that will avoid feeling fat. Now, right now, we're going to start with the special panel on innovation. And the person that I'm going to introduce who's going to moderate this panel, Marius Robles, is the founder and CEO of Reimagine Food. This company is focusing on passion of food and how to bring innovation in order to make it better for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, Marius Robles.
Do you love me? Do you love me? I said I get ready. Watch me now. Oh, walk it up, baby. Oh, drive me crazy. Just a little bit's alright. I can mash potato. I can do the twist. Tell me, baby, do you like it like this?
Hey, good afternoon. Are you listening? Okay. Well, now a special exercise in the next 35 minutes. Close your eyes and reimagine food, please. Because now we have 35 minutes, very spectacular, to talk it, not only about the present, talking about the future on food and tech. Well, let me introduce, because we try a round table with Reed Diversity, represents for different key figures of the drivers of food tech revolution. Probably 5 special concepts. AgTech with Melissa, investors with Ellie, health with Nora, food delivery, Melly, and nutrition with Yanko. Okay, probably has become, in my opinion, the 5 areas that we need to analyze very, very near in the next years. To help the audience to acquire the real dimension about what means food tech, let me show you that this year, for example, the investment in food tech is approximately $5,000 million. 2,700 million dollars last year, and 930 million in 2030. This, for instance, this late figure is just the fundraising of the August of this year. Imagine the power of the food tech that we have here. Well, probably now we are in a big opportunity that we are in a new era. Why we say the new era? Because it's the first time that we have the converge of 2 very important concepts. First of all, it's a time when technology meets food. And the second one is the first time that converge when food meets technology. Let me explain. When I say that food tech meets food, it's because companies like Google, Airbnb, Amazon, Apple, Samsung start some projects about relationship with food. It's the first time that food meets technology, that, for example, restaurant or food service start to applicate tables, beacons, etc. It's the first time. And in the middle of the 2 concepts, the consumer. The consumer has the power probably in the next 2 years. Well, let me start with Melly Odemis, with co-founder Jimmy Sebeti. Yes, pronunciation, yes, correct. Probably of the number of the fundraising of this year, the $5,000 million, a big percent is about food service. Food service have a rate of growth approximately 215 in the last 2 years. Probably we are in the case of the biggest ever life revolution in home delivery. We have different concepts. In Spain, we have the case of Just Eat, but basically in Europe, we have two very important players, like Rocket Internet, that both precisely La Nevera Roja, and Delivery Hero is the domain player of the market. An example is Yemesite, which has recently acquired by Delivery Hero with a value of approximately 589 million in cash and share deals, with also investor General Electric become shareholders. Yemesepeti is processing more than 3 million orders each month and a growth of 60% of a year. In addition, he has recently come attention on the story about probably is the best, one of the co-founders, is one of the best boss in the world. Why? Because for every of his employees, 140 employees, have paid $237,000 for every dollar for our operation. Well, it's the best boss, like I say. Like I say in this moment, when I talk about technology meets food, how these models, the uberization of the food market, then for example, in Amazon, in the distribution about food delivery from main restaurants in Seattle, or new technology players like Uber or Uber, how do you see affect or concern you in this time?
Actually, this business is not new in any part of the world. I mean, because, for example, the big players in United States that have started this business, that's one of them is Seamless. They started with the name Seamless Web. Then they dropped out the web, but they continued as Seamless. And there is also Grubhub. Seamless started around 99, 2000. Grubhub started around 2004, 5. And then they have merged 2 years ago, and they went public. So, but Amazon also had some early interest on food. But food delivery is something a lot more difficult than delivering other goods, because you have to do it in real time. That's what keeps us apart from all other e-commerce players and marketplaces, because you have to prepare the food and take it to the customer in less than 1 hour, like between half an hour and 45 minutes. That's why, although Amazon and Uber and many other big players are trying, or let's say, discovering this space, I think the big players like Just Eat, Grubhub and Seamless together, etc., they will be and become the strong and big players. They will keep their positions. That's what I think. But that doesn't mean that other big players or even new companies that they cannot try new things and they can innovate in the domain. So for the players in Europe like Yemeksepeti, Delivery Hero, etc., Amazons and Ubers, etc., they are still growing slowly in Europe and other parts of the world. Maybe in the States, in Silicon Valley, in New York, etc., they might create some kind of success, but I don't think that they will create any kind of threat to the players in Europe.
Thank you, Mali. Ali, let's talk about disruptorati concept, okay? Disruptorati, for the people that don't know, after disrupting e-commerce, the apps on our day of today, the Illuminati of disruption innovation, want to play with our food. This approach have attracted investors, football players, business person, venture capital, and leaders, business leaders like Bill Gates, for example, or Steve Case around. And another question is not what is the next app or the new e-commerce platform for food. The question now is probably the next big challenge in technology those go into your smartphone, probably in your plate. No? And you know, and you this, especially about the your investment in Hampton Creek. For the people that don't know, Hampton Creek, in just 18 months, fundraising 200 millions, and is the substitute of the eggs. You're thinking about the eggs market in the USA is approximately $10,000 million. Every citizen of America consume an average of 215 units of year. Imagine that you replace the eggs or have, in this case, Yes Mayo is a mayonnaise. From your perspective, like a serial investor and from your experience, what do you consider is the key of this rapid growth in investment in food tech? What has the consequence that the disruptorati develop into this sector?
I have to say, for one, I've still been surprised at how much VC investment there has been in food tech. It's something that's been interesting for me for several years, but the amount of interest from the rest of Silicon Valley has certainly taken me by surprise in the last couple of years. And there's, enormous financings have been announced just in the last month. Actually, this past week, I think Impossible Foods raised an enormous amount of money as well. So I think that there's several factors. One is that I'd say it's comparable to the interest in sustainable energy from 5 years ago, but that it's I think the potential for profitably making food more sustainable is much better. It's much more attractive than in energy, and so whether that means by finding more sustainable ways to produce existing food or creating completely new food formulations that are inherently more sustainable. Hampton Creek's appeal to investors, and there's several other companies that are in the same category, Impossible Foods, and I mentioned earlier a company called Clara Foods that I'm an investor in as well. In general, the appealing to investors is that this is a way to produce essentially the same product, meaning a product that the consumer will be just as happy to eat, may not even know the difference, but that is much less resource intensive and therefore much cheaper ultimately. So we'll see whether this succeeds or not, but the potential to make food production be more sustainable really is, I think, one of the biggest challenges facing humanity, and I think that's why it's attracting so much attention from Silicon Valley.
Okay, perfect. Now, Melissa, Tilde, co-founder of AgFounder. Probably 2 years ago, it's impossible thinking about the converge of crowdfunding, agriculture. It's impossible. 2 years ago, and in Spain, we started probably 4 years ago to the crowdfunder market, and in agriculture, it's the other side. But it's more surprises that the fundraising, for example, in the middle of the year, have a tracking record of 2 billions in active investment in these first years. Melissa, what of all these projects, I think, what of these projects have you considered that integrate a specific technology, a transfer technology in the agricultural market? What is the difference between last year in the same month? We have increased 132% of the fundraising.
Yeah, so like Mario said, there's been an enormous growth in investment in agriculture technology. And a lot of that top line is being driven by some large deals, but actually most of the activity is in the seed and Series A. And the average age of an ag tech company is about 2 to 3 years old. So what we're really seeing is the emergence of new agriculture technologies. As far as this year, there are, I would say, 3 technologies that I've found really interesting that represent somewhat of a break from last year. one of the technologies, actually a company that I'm following closely. It's called Autonomous Tractor Corporation. And they've just completed the first redesign of the tractor in over 80 years. And if you look at the car industry, there's Tesla, there's Google. These companies have built electric platforms. On top of that, they're trying to put autonomous technology. None of that has happened in the tractor space so far. Autonomous Tractor just developed a diesel-electric platform. On top of that, they have built all new in-field laser technology to work with electric technology to make the tractors autonomous. They're rolling out their diesel-electric platform this quarter, Q4, and next year their autonomous technology will be on the market. So I think this has, you know, when we think about the future of some of the equipment, this is a great example where we're going to see in the future smaller tractors, much more efficient. It's not going to be a huge capital outlay for the farmers, and you're going to actually see this impacting large-scale farming as well as small-scale farming. So that's technology that's in the work. The whole equipment part of the industry, the robotics, I think is really developing, and I'm curious to see how that goes over time. As far as the production side of things, the buzzword has really been around precision agriculture, and the idea there is that farmers will be able to tend to each individual plant on their farm and make those plants grow the best that they can to really increase productivity on the farm. What I've seen a few players start doing, they started in the US market, but what they've done is they've taken their technology and they've right-sized it, and they've been applying it in emerging markets. So if you look at a yield map of the world, the yields in emerging markets are a lot lower than they are in the developed world. And so if we can take some of the technology that's being developed, put it in the developing markets, make it applicable there, I think we'll see some real productivity gains there. And then the last thing is, you know, we think about farming as something that takes place on the land, but a lot of farming is moving indoors, and people are in lab coats when they're farming. And you know, we've been watching trends in indoor agriculture over the last few years, and there have been questions around the sustainability or the business models and whether these companies will actually be able to sustain themselves. And we've seen a lot of efficiencies being made and a lot of new technology in indoor farming that I think will make that a very viable industry.
Thank you, Melissa. Janko, native from Edaman. It's a good friend because Edaman is one of the companies that we accelerated last year in Reimagine Food. And you need to think that each month, over 1,000 million of search in Google is about recipes. Edaman offers more than 1 million of the best recipes of the web, which you can filter with the number of calories, type of diet, and obviously with a sophisticated algorithm methods. I have a customer, New York Times, Samsung, Nestlé, Epicurious, and probably is the most attractive combination between nutrition, food, and tech. And I have a question for you. What do you consider that probably is the next great frontier in the interaction between the personalization of recipes, Internet of Things, of the new concept of a smart kitchen?
Well, it's a great question. Thanks, Marius. I think it's really actually health, which is the real next big frontier. And in between the big frontier, which is health, there is the shorter term one, which is actually information flow. And let me explain this in the following way. I mean, say a couple of centuries ago, we were eating whatever tasted best, if we could get hold of it, obviously. Maybe 50 years back, in particular in the US, we started eating whatever was fastest to prepare. And about 10, 15 years ago, we decided that, okay, now we want to eat healthy, no matter how it tastes. And today, what happens is that actually we can have all of these. Because in the new ecosystem which evolved between Internet of Things, between information, between big data, it's actually possible to create such a information flow which will allow us to know what we eat, know our conditions, our limitations, and at the end of the day, cook it faster. Just to give you an example, what can happen with the existing technologies is I can get on my telephone or whatever way data from my physician, my doctor, which will tell me what conditions they have, what they need to eat, what I cannot eat. Then I can access different databases, for example, Edamame, and actually get a meal plan which fits exactly my need. Then my fridge will tell me what's in it and what I need to buy, so it will create a shopping cart for me for the entire week. And I can program automatically my kitchen stove to preheat every evening at the exact given time so that I can save time and cook a good meal, but much faster. And all this happens, and it's powered by the flow of information, so that each actor in the food ecosystem knows what the other is doing and can act on it. So the big the big development in that is the API ecosystem, where different APIs interact with each other. And I would say on the other side, we have other tools which help the consumers interact with this ecosystem as well, like Amazon Echo, the new Alexa device, which allows you to control voice-wise all your devices at home, which allows them to tell you actually what's in there. So the interaction also becomes much easier. So it is really about how information flows. But the end game is health. And that's why what drives really, I think, actually all this money which comes into food tech, because that's where really a lot of money is.
Thank you. We continue with health, with the combination with another technology like artificial intelligence. We continue with Nora. Nora Caldi is the founder of Nuritas. It is a startup that have a spectacular challenge, revolutionizing the way everyone looks health using powerful computer technology and artificial intelligence to mine 16 food products for beneficial companies. Yes, and it's the first time probably that one tech company make a brutal statement of intention aligned with the health and food, because the borders around is not very clear of this border. Nora is PhD in molecular evolution. Like I said, through your career, and let me talk about your vision, has been to disrupt the way we look at food. How do you think this disruption is coming?
I think disruption is already here in food. So I kind of give you a little bit of what we do at Nuritas first and explain it a little further. So at Nuritas, we're identifying life-changing ingredients in food. And these life-changing ingredients have been in food since the existence of humans on Earth. But no one so far has been capable of identifying them in food until Nuritas. So we identify them and create them. And what does this mean? So basically, every time you eat food, you eat about 1 trillion molecules. Every time you eat something, you're eating trillions of molecules. These molecules are interacting with your body. And some of them are actually very, very interesting because they have immense health benefits. For example, they lower cholesterol, they lower blood pressure, or they regulate sugar, glucose in the blood. So they're good for diabetics. But so far, it has taken millions and years to identify some of them. What we're doing is that we're creating, we're bringing in machine learning and artificial intelligence, and we're looking at food at the molecular level using genomics and proteomics, and identifying these life-changing ingredients in a very cost-effective way. So instead of spending billions, we're doing it in a few months. So in the past few months, we have discovered quite a few life-changing ingredients that we have patented so far and now commercializing them. So in a nutshell, really, we're disrupting the way people look at food. So food is not really used to its full potential. Food is only used for, giving us energy or for taste, but there's so much more in food that no one is looking into. And the good thing about our technology is that it can be pointed to any organic matter. So currently we're focused on food. But more specifically, we're focused on what we call food co-products or food side products. And what this means is that if you look at the food chain, at the start of the food chain, there's about 50% loss of food, and that's called co-product. And it's crazy because in a few years' time, we'll need to feed 9 billion people, and yet we're throwing away 50% of our foods. And when I first started working in food, I realized that they weren't throwing it away because it was toxic. They weren't throwing it away because it was the shelf life was past. They were throwing it away because they didn't know what benefit it had, and they didn't know how to use this byproduct. And this is where we're turning our artificial machine and machine learning on. We're looking at these co-products and adding value to them by finding life-changing ingredients within that are going to transform human health. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what we're doing.
Thank you, Nora. Just last question for everyone. The poet Charles Baudelaire say that the figure of the city change more faster than the human heart. Probably we have in a moment that all technology move more quickly in a growth market, very different, like probably the consumer really need now, probably native, consumer native. Bearing this in mind, Meli, start with you. What do you consider is probably the next big thing in food in the next 5 years?
Of course, I don't know, but if I knew, even if I knew, I wouldn't tell it, first of all. But I mean, I think it won't come from the area where I used to work, and I mean, it will not come from the lifestyle, payment, food ordering, food delivery, etc., but it will come from her area. Because I mean, I believe how we produced and did food, made food, was same for thousands of years. But now we are at the edge of, with all biogens and nanotechnology, etc., with health. And the more we know about food, I think the production and the way we will consume the food and what we will eat will change a lot. So I mean, that's at least, I would assume that it will be related to the health part of it, health angle of it, and the production of it, but not on the consumption side or delivery or lifestyle side.
You're thinking probably about the personalized food production?
I think that will be possible. I mean, with all the 3D printing and everything, I think, I mean, we will have a kind of a personal, I mean, even nowadays we can do tests that what we should eat and what we should not eat. These tests with DNA and everything will be almost, I mean, general and available to everybody, so that we will be able to know what we should eat and what we should not eat, and we will be able to produce them ourselves, maybe at home.
Please.
Sorry.
Yes. But what do you think, the same question? Probably is the next big thing in food in the next 5 years.
Well, I don't know if there's any single thing. I would agree that what Nora's doing is very exciting. I'm actually an investor in her company, Nuritas, so definitely I believe and hope that it will be the next big thing. I would love to hear a little bit more about what you were saying, because it wasn't clear for me when you were talking about finding life-changing ingredients in food. Is it that, do you then isolate them and have to produce more of it, or is the quantity in, I mean, if,
Okay.
you know, I eat broccoli because it supposedly has nutrition already in it.
Yeah, but there's a difference between nutrition and then these kind of like drug-like molecules. So what we're doing is that if you take, let's say, broccoli, and we break it down in such a way to release these activities are they're not active in the normal form. They just need to be kind of released from the structure of the food. And once they're released, then they perform a certain functionality. And the quantity of the food can be from about 80% to 100%. So that means that if you take a broccoli, we probably might use 80% of the broccoli or 100% of it, between 80 and 100%. We throw away very little. So if you take a co-product that's currently thrown away, we use most of it to create the ingredient. What we're doing is simply releasing the activity from the structure of the food. Because these activities are embedded, they're dormant within the structure, and when you release them, they become active.
I see. So you're not isolating a micronutrient and throwing away the rest of the food. You're
That's not really, not with the ingredients we have. So there's two types of ingredients really. So the majority of the ingredients we have, we're just allowing the molecule to be expressed. So we're taking it out, but the food itself is there. But the second part is if the molecule is has very low concentration, then you need to focus on concentrating it. But the majority of the ingredients we don't need to do that with. So it's just the full ingredient, but just release of the activity within.
Interesting.
Thank you, Ali and Melissa and Nora. Melissa, probably this next frontier and the next big thing in AgTech in the next 5 years, no? Probably the connection between consumer, no? Rethinking about the connection. Explain what you think probably is the next big thing that.
I guess actually one point I was going to add on to the conversation is, there are a lot of companies that are working on innovations in food and, pre-farm gate and ag tech, but I actually think there hasn't been enough time spent educating consumers and really bringing enough education about health, about food, and using the sort of nutrition community and the scientific community, helping translate some of their work so that it's easier for us to understand and then for us to make choices around our food. So that's one thing. In terms of ag tech, this isn't quite as sexy as some of the other stuff, but it's something that was already mentioned, and it's really one of the issues around food waste. And depending on who you talk to, maybe 20, 30, 40% of all food is wasted, and it happens at all different points along the value chain. And so there isn't one specific innovation here, but there are a lot of players that are working at all parts of the chain to try to decrease food waste. And I think we'll see a lot of progress in the next 5 years on that.
Cool. The next big challenge, what do you think?
I think the next big challenge is really being able to collect all this data in a single place and to mine it so that we know as a consumer, or at least our the database we use knows what our intake is and how it affects our health. That's really the big challenge, because there is no such information. We know how much calories we burned, we know such things, but we have no idea what we ate. We keep track of what we ate only if we are dying. Then that's the case in which we start keeping track of what we eat. Otherwise, no. And we're believers that being able to match the data of what I ate with how my health performs, it will actually make a huge difference. That we can prolong our lives with 10, 20 years even by simply eating what is best for us and what fits our particular lifestyle and particular body. So I think that's the next big challenge, and that's why we personally are building the largest food database in nutrition, because we want to provide this data to people.
Nora, just in 1 minute. Yes.
Yeah, I'll try and be quick. I think, that there's a few big things. Health is a big one. Functional food, so food with a real function, so a real health benefit within. I think it's the next big thing. But also personalized nutrition, where you give us your genome and we will tell you exactly, depending on your mutations, what specific nutrients or what specific peptides, in our case, you should be eating in order to extend your life. And if you think about it, 96% of the cost of health costs around the world is targeted towards when you get sick, take a drug and get better, maybe. And only 4% is targeted towards wellness and well-being and prevention. And this is going to change. This is really going to change in the future because it's not sustainable. There's a full-grown population size of the elderly. It's not sustainable to cure people when they're sick, but to extend their life and make them reach their later stages healthier. So functional food is going to be a big one. That's food with a real function, a real scientific claim behind. And I think personalized nutrition is the next big one as well.
Okay, thank you very much for all the speakers. And just thinking about the future is very near, or near that we thought. Thank you very much.
Sound good. All right. Well, we got one more speaker tonight around food. Now, if you thought that this was interesting in terms of innovation, the next speaker is going to talk about genetically modified food and what we don't know about it. But this isn't a normal speaker. This guy is one of the pioneers of the internet. He was one of the guys that took AOL from 2 billion to 220 billion. He is one of the top venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Barry Schuller.
Can we get a little, there we go. So this is going to be a little bit different because we're going to talk about technology, but it's the technology of life. So I don't know if you know it or not, but while you've been busy Snapchatting and thinking about the next great app, scientists and technologists have been figuring out the code of life. And it's going to change everything. So let's rock and roll. I like to point this out. I don't think anyone here was born in the year 2000, but you probably know somebody. And if you were born, for the generation that was born in the year 2000, they're a generation of firsts and lasts. I like to point out they're probably the last generation that will ever drive a car themselves. And thank goodness, because as I said yesterday, humans are awful drivers, and as soon as we have our cars as robots, a lot of people won't die on the road. They will be the first generation that probably is not going to die of cancer. Maybe in 10 years, no one will die of cancer. And they will be the first generation that routinely lives to triple-digit years, whether that's 100 or 200 or maybe more, we don't quite know yet. It will also be the last generation to eat seafood unless they go and actually catch it on their own. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And they will be the last generation that witnessed starvation. So why do I say these things? As I mentioned, we're in the midst of the most profound period of discovery and invention in the history of humankind. It sounds like, well, you were a computer guy. Wasn't it a big deal when the microcomputer came along? Yeah, it was pretty good. And computers are good, and your cell phone is good, but what happens when all of a sudden we have the code of life and we understand what it means? And not only do we understand what the code of life means by reading it, but we can write it and change it as well. This all started in the year 2000 when the first human genome was sequenced. Now, the genome is the code of life. You know, you get a big list of a bunch of letters if you remember your high school biology. And when we sequence a genome, we get all that code, but we don't necessarily understand what it means. It's like if someone handed you the code for Microsoft Windows. You'd look at it, and you know, if you're a coder, you could figure it out. And by the way, it says 13 years. It actually took all of humankind's combined intelligence and technology to get to that point, and about $3 billion to sequence one human genome, Craig Venters. Today, a short period later, it's $1,000 and going down fast and can be done in a day or so. So now that we have this code, and by the way, it's much easier to sequence the genome of a bacteria or a plant. I live on a vineyard in Napa. I grow wine. We're certainly interested in our grapes' genomes. And so what's happening is there's an explosion of sequencing of all living things right now. And it's being reposited, it's being shared. And all of a sudden, biology starts to look like big data. So technologists and biologists can get together. But genomes don't behave exactly like computer code. So if you look at this simple equation, 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 1 will always equal 2, no matter what you do. But when you're dealing with living organisms, and you say, I have a red carnation and I have a white carnation, and I'd like to get a pink one, so maybe I'll put them together and they can get cozy, cross-pollinate, and I will get a pink carnation. But when you actually do that, sometimes this happens. And sometimes this happens. So it's not exactly like the 1 + 1 = 2 all the time. In fact, life is very dynamic and changing all the time. But now that we can read the code, we can understand why that happens. And when you understand why that happens, you can have impact and effect on it. You can control what it is. So why do we care? Well, I'm going to, I've tried to skew this toward food because this is a food session, but everything that's going on in genomics is going to impact medicine. It's going to impact manufacturing. It truly is. We'll look back at the year 2000, sort of like the book, that this was a year that began the next era of humankind. So think about the ability to make fuel, petrochemicals, although buy electric cars. We're investors in Tesla. Forget about the petrochemicals. Making fuel like we make wine, brewing it with algae or bacteria. Imagine the ability to fabricate proteins by 3D printing them with a 3D printing-like device. Think about crops, new generations of crops that can produce high yields, grow in very difficult environments, sub-Saharan environments, Saharan environments. Imagine completely disrupting our relationship with disease. We live in fear of getting cancer, heart disease, many horrible things that we've not understood, but at the genetic level, we can start to understand what's really happening and how we might cure. And we can end starvation, and we can actually repair the ecosystem. One of the things you hear, people are very scared about GMOs, and it is kind of scary when you talk about manipulating life, but some of the problems that we've created, like too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, we could also use this technology and knowledge to repair and also have more respect and treat our ecosystem better. By the way, this is not new. People have been messing around with genomes forever. The Romans bred dogs for hunting. They've been cultivating, the Native Americans cultivated corn. Those guys gave Christopher Columbus a little dose of popcorn when he was there. If you have a dog, there's no dog or cat that's domesticated that isn't heavily GMO'd, meaning they wouldn't exist in nature. We did it by breeding. But we've also developed that technology over time. And you should know that the things we do in the environment also modify genomes. So, for example, when you take antibiotics, you're modifying the genome of the creatures, the little bugs you're trying to kill with antibiotics, and they change. When we fertilize the soil, when we use insecticides, we cause mutations that actually engineer the crops and the food around us. And then we've learned how to mess around with genomes. You see this little glowing kitty. It looks like, oh, isn't that a joke? Somebody took a cat and they, crossbred it with a glowing squid. Actually, these bioluminescent cats were done to create tracers to help cure AIDS. And it was how they were able to learn the mechanism behind HIV. And that's been done with gene splicing or recombinant DNA. And then, of course, we hear about GMO'd foods that have been bred for shipping or to be insect resistant. And it's very controversial. People worry about what they eat. And you should worry. And the reason they worry is because we don't fully understand what we're doing when we're just tinkering around with genes. However, if we have the whole code, if you have the whole instruction book of how the species works, you're not playing anymore. You know exactly what to do. And this leads me to another profound discovery that has gone on, and I expect we'll be reading some really interesting announcements this year, and that is life has been created in the lab. In 2010, Craig Venter's group, same team, took a very simple organism and they looked at its genome and they fabricated it from scratch. They used a computer and they replicated its genome and they added some things in, little watermarks, people's names, so that if it worked and the species replicated, you could see it in their DNA. And then they took natural organism, they took its DNA out, they put the artificial one in, and what do you think happened? Did they have to shock it like Frankenstein? Did they have to call God or the Force? No, actually, it just booted up and went because nature is very powerful. And we're starting to understand nature's toolbox. So that was a stepping stone to the next step, which is actually create an organism from scratch. So when you're dealing with, a human has about 30,000 genes. Pretty complicated. These are very simple creatures with 550 or 80. You can really understand what they all do. So they set about creating an organism from scratch that doesn't exist in nature. And watch the news and you'll find out whether it actually worked or not. But presuming it has, it tells us we now have the ability to write the code of life in the same way we might write a computer program or design something to do things we want them to do. And this will revolutionize everything. So this ability to either create life or by sequencing genomes, finding forms of life that do things we want them to do really forms the basis of this revolution that's happening. Nature is very powerful. Trees make turpentine. We find oil, which is really, fossilized algae. Nature out-engineers us by far, mostly because nature doesn't have to ship a product next month to stay in business. Nature has had millions and millions of years to evolve slowly and get it right. And the toolbox is very powerful, and we can harness that toolbox for growing food, for medicine, for manufacturing. And the other thing is that once we have a genome, it's digital. We can send a file just like you send an email. In fact, you've been reading about finding water on Mars, yeah? People are excited. If you find water, there's probably life there, and they want to go and see what's there. Well, if we went to Mars with a robot, which we will, and we go digging around for microbial life, we don't have to package it and send it back to Earth and hope it's still alive. All we have to do is send a robot with a gene sequencer, assuming it has DNA, by the way, but sequence its genome, send it home electronically the same way you get online, and then we can take that code and replicate that species right here in the lab. I'm sure they'll keep it locked up till they figure out what the heck it is. The point is, when you think about this as it relates to food, how we grow crops, how we look at food production is going to completely change, and it's already starting to happen. So I'm going to go through some of the things that are happening. You may have heard about algae as it relates to fuel. Algae is a very powerful little creature. It's pervasive. It is where all of our fossil petrochemicals come from. They happen to be very good at storing fat, just like me. And some are better than others, and by finding natural algae, by sequencing their genome, or if you want to go ahead, engineering them, or building a form of algae from scratch with all the tools they have, all of a sudden you may be able to make cost-effective fuels for cars. They're already making all kinds of foods. So there are several companies that make algae-based oil that's healthy, very low in cholesterol. Protein is harvested, fats are harvested, omega-3 fatty acids, fish oil that you may take as a supplement without tasting fishy. And in fact, you can pretty much do anything in the petrochemical chain. So there are companies looking at using algae secreted products to make plastics, eco-friendly plastics that are recyclable. This is one of my favorites. I don't know if there are any vegetarians or vegans here, but generally they say they don't want to eat anything that has a mother. And of course, ranching and livestock and deforestation has profound impact on our environment. So a lot of people have been looking at not a meat substitute. We all can go and buy those soybean hamburgers or taco meat, which tastes not exactly like meat, maybe not a satisfying replacement. But people are looking at, can we just grow the muscle tissue that's a part of steak or chicken breast or whatever? And the answer is, of course you can. All you have to do is harvest some of the tissue, give it a few instructions to say, grow without being attached to something, and get it to grow fast enough, and all of a sudden you'll have motherless meat. So the amount of motherless meat that has been made is small and expensive, but you got to start somewhere, right? And there are people who are also looking at, again, 3D printing protein structures in the form of the kinds of foods we like. At the same time, protein powders are very easy, and there is a protein shortage in the world. There's a starvation problem in the world. The ability to produce these things, put printing machines or protein fabrication machines in areas where people are short of food and create protein products there rather than trying to ship them across the world is what's going to help us solve starvation, along with the ability to get crops there that are tolerant to their climates and produce a lot of food for people. This is a really interesting area. Has anyone heard of this word microbiome is popping up now and then? A couple of hands here. So microbiome is a very interesting discovery, and the discovery is we are not alone. We're actually a colony. I'm going to talk about the human microbiome, but in plants, what we've discovered is in the root systems of plants, there are all kinds of bacteria. And those bacteria eat the compounds in the soil, and they poop it out, and that's what the plant ingests. And it's those chemicals, those biochemicals, that really impact the fruit that comes out of the plant. We're very interested in this in grape farming because we want to know what is it that gives our grapes good tastes and bad tastes. And look, people have been fertilizing, farmers have been fertilizing for a long time just because they knew that it did something. Well, what they're really doing is feeding the microbiome, which is feeding the plant. When it comes to humans, we have a microbiome too. Turns out a lot. Turns out that we have 90% of the DNA in your body is not yours. A guy like me, a pretty big guy, has 20 pounds of various bacteria, flora, and fauna in my body, on my skin. And this is a colony that we live together with. We need them. They help us digest food. They help us regulate a variety of things. And inadvertently, when we've been taking antibiotics because we get a cold or a flu, we're killing our microbiome. Also, you know, when we eat yogurt and it makes us feel good, we didn't really know what we're doing is feeding that microbiome. When we talk about healthy eating, it's our microbiome that we're affecting. And this is one of the biggest areas of research because it's turning out they believe a lot of stubborn diseases may be being caused by some imbalance or the wrong kinds of bugs getting into our microbiome. And this is a very exciting area of food, where food manufacturers are looking at how do they not just create food that tastes good, but feed our microbiome and help us attain the kind of balance that we want. And so you're going to be hearing a lot about probiotic foods and nutraceuticals. This is really fast to do in 20 minutes. I'm down to 2, but I'm going to get there. Another area is aquaculture. You may have, I mentioned before, that this generation is likely to mostly be eating farmed fish. It's because we have so voraciously depleted our ocean's resources, we're not going to be able to have enough fish. So there have been enterprising people who have been farming fish, but there have been problems. One of the problems is you need 3 to 5 pounds of fish food to get 1 pound of protein back, which means you got to go catch little bait fish, grind them up, throw it in there. And it turns out where they catch the bait fish are in areas that are pretty polluted around the world. And when they grind it up, and they concentrate it. So when they feed the farmed fish, those farmed fish end up with toxins in them, which has been a real problem in the first generation of aquaculture. Well, now that they've sorted that out, they're looking at new ways to feed them. And we can go back to our friends algae, one of their natural foods, and cultivate algae and pick strains by understanding their sequence that are fast-growing and make a viable fish food, and all of a sudden aquaculture becomes healthier and better. And at the same time, they are engineering fish species. One was approved in the US, a salmon that grows much faster on much less food. People are a little spooked about it, but if you can read the genome of that fish and you know there's nothing there, it looks just like a natural fish, you're not acting from ignorance. All of the fear of GMO comes from ignorance, and it's okay. Trust me. I'd eat a GMO'd anything that's been approved probably more easily than take all the antibiotics they throw at you when you get a little sniffle. So where are we? We are right at the beginning of this revolution. There's amazing things going on. There are tools being developed, there are products coming out, there are companies being formed, and because this is a combination of biology and IT, big data, what you see happening is the world is getting together and working together in a crowdsourcing way, because we hope we're going to cure diseases and end starvation and make good things happen. There is a dark side to all this. Last slide, don't worry over there. I see them pacing around. There is a dark side to this, like there is with any technology. I mean, when electricity was discovered and put to work, it could shock you. When we were developing nuclear technology, they were afraid they were going to blow up the planet. We're sort of keeping that one a little under control. It's very important with all technologies, and we certainly see with the internet, it delivers lots of things, but there are hackers and bad people out there. The key is responsible management of innovation, the community getting together and creating standards for everybody. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, we've been talking a little bit about innovation for the last couple of hours, but this next company is truly the definition of innovation. What's innovation today? It's impact. These people have disrupted an industry. The people that have been disrupted would have never imagined that a company like this was going to show up. How many of you have used Airbnb? Come on. Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Airbnb, if you look at the city of Paris, 25% of the tourists that go to Paris use Airbnb. That's amazing. And some of the rooms they're paying like 200 or 300 euros a night. So these people are getting competition now. The luxury hotels are scared. It is my pleasure to introduce to you a serial entrepreneur who's been involved in innovation for many years. Let's see if I can pronounce this. Jérôme Mercier, the CEO, General Manager of Airbnb Europe and Russia.
turn anything on. It just.
Yeah. Can I get some sound? Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you, great introduction. So I was thinking while I was preparing this how to best present Airbnb, and one of the most often heard questions that I have whenever I talk about the company is, so the B&B, I get that, but the air, where does that come from? And I'm going to start with our founding story. So we have 3 founders. 2 of them are designers. They wanted to be entrepreneurs, and they were living in Silicon Valley, the west coast of the US. And they said, look, I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm having a very comfortable, good job at the moment, but this is not really where I see myself going on in the future. So what they did is they left their jobs, and that way they could think 24 hours a day about what is going to be the next big thing that is going to change the world. Great idea. First month, the idea wasn't there. Nothing happened. Second month, no idea. And the third month, they couldn't pay their rent. So what they did, it's a big problem, right? So what they did is they had a big living room, and in that living room, just at the time, there was a huge conference in San Francisco, and the conference was a design conference, so all of the hotels were completely sold out. They said, let's make some additional money in order to pay the rent for the month, and we'll create a little web page around that. And that web page was 3 airbeds that they put in their living room, so that's where the original name comes from. Airbed and breakfast, and then later on introduced into Airbnb. And the very first web page looked like this. So it doesn't have much to do with where we are now, but this is a little bit the origin. And what we still have in common, and a year and a half ago, we rebranded our entire site. So our complete logo, our complete company was rebranded because we wanted to go back to where we came from, what we stand for. And if you take a look at what our logo looks like at the moment, it's a reflection of what identifies Airbnb, what makes Airbnb special, what makes Airbnb different. Accommodation, there's different sides of accommodation. What Airbnb offers is a unique form of accommodation offered by people, so those are our 2 main elements, and really allowing travelers from around the world to feel like a local in all of the cities that they're visiting, all of the cities, all of the regions that they're living. So Airbnb has put it together in what we call our new logo, the Bello logo, but those are the pillars. Yeah? It's unique accommodation offered by individuals, so people like all of us in their homes, so creating and combining those 2 into unique experience. And then obviously, we're part of the sharing economy, so there's 2 terms that I'd like to spend a little bit more time on. One is the sharing economy. There's a lot of names about the sharing economy. There's a lot of things that are being written. So Times called it one of the 10 things that's going to change the world. And then both in the private as well as in the public sector, there's articles written because it's really disrupting whole industries, traditional businesses. And it's happening, as you've seen in the previous slide, it's happening in a lot of sectors. It's not just happening in accommodation, it's not just happening in transportation, it's happening in the finance sector, in service sector, in banking sector. So it's happening in all of the sectors. And if we take a look at what the sharing economy is all about and why is it happening now, so it's really kicked off in the last, I would say, 3-4 years, right? And what has happened since then, it's basically new technology. So the mobile technology, social networks, the new types of databases are able to accompany and create a trust network that for the very first time in our history, people have a trust to interact between themselves. So there's no traditional brands that has to be in the middle. The traditional brands, what they've done is basically guarantee you, provide you certain guarantees, certain security. That is being changed for a reputation. So an individual, a person, now a reputation is something that you can monetize. On our website, for example, if somebody has several 5-star reviews, the apartment, the room that he's renting out, he can charge a higher rate for somebody who has no ratings, who has no reviews. So the online reputation that somebody has is able to being monetized. So that's one thing. And then it's the most efficient way, if you think about it, it's the most efficient way to operate. It's completely de-intermediating and in any way. It's putting people directly in touch with each other. So apart from the human connection, it's also the most efficient way to operate, right? And we're going in generally away from the need of owning something. I'm in my office, and I'm not too old. I'm one of the oldest in my office for the first time, but I'm the only one who's got a car. All of the other people in the office don't own a car or don't have any plans of owning a car. And the reason is there's no need for it. So we're going away from the traditional model of I need to own a car versus what I really am looking for is a way how I can, in a very comfortable way, transport myself from A to B at the time I want and how I want. Right? That's really the need that we want to fulfill. So we're going from property to an access type of economy. And all of that is very key in the sharing economy. So the nice thing about that and the environmental impact that is generating is that it's putting a lot of excess capacity, whether it's in cars, in accommodation, all of that excess capacity at the moment is being put to use. Yeah, so there is no need to construct more. In the last 50 years, we've consumed and we've constructed as much in the 50,000 years before that. So something is wrong, right? Something that we're doing at the moment is not really sustainable. And that's something that the sharing economy is trying to solve simply by providing a way to better use the assets that are already available. And then at the same time, that human connection, I've heard people say that traveling with Airbnb has made them friends from across the world. So it's making the world a little bit of a smaller place. And that's very, very, very important, right? So I've done consulting for 10 years. I've stayed in a lot of hotels, but I remember very few of them. And the ones that I remember, I don't necessarily remember the accommodation. What I remember is the service, the food, so something special about them. I don't remember all of the Airbnbs that I've stayed at. I've stayed at quite a few. But I remember most of the people that I interacted with. And that's really what we are looking for. I think by feeling at home and as a local in the different places that we are visiting, it's a much more authentic experience. A question. I came across this. So most of you probably have heard about these brands. Any idea what they have in common? Different industries, yeah? That's a good answer. So the answer is zero. It's not nothing, it's zero. And it's zero because there's zero assets. They manage zero assets. So Facebook, for example, the most popular media company at the moment, the most valued media company at the moment, creates itself zero content. Uber, the world's largest taxi or transportation service, owns zero cars. Alibaba, the Chinese Amazon, Alibaba is the most valued retailer across the world and manages zero inventory. And the same thing goes for Airbnb. So that creates a model by itself where the balance sheet obviously looks completely different and that is tremendously scalable. Yeah, so using, and those are the two terms that I wanted to explain. So on the one side, we have the sharing economy, right? And then it's very much related to it. It's what is being called the zero economy, but very scalable businesses by platforms that are intermediating. So there's two consequences to that. And obviously, our biggest asset in Airbnb is not the types of accommodation. I think our biggest asset is the community we manage. So the people that travel with us, the people that host with us. And we want to somehow, because without these people, without these, at the moment we have 1.7 million homes from across the world. So without these people, our company would be nothing, right? The risk exists that without having a clear interaction and clear involvement, that we separate the two so that there's a kind of a distance, a barrier between the two. And that's really what we want to avoid. So I've put a slide on here about the Airbnb Open. Airbnb Open for us is one of our biggest events that we run across the year, where 6,000 hosts from across the world come to Paris, and we basically have discussions with them about the vision of the company, some of the core values that we defend, simply because they're an important part of our company. Without them, we wouldn't be able to offer what we're offering. If you think about it, we offer 100% personalized service. And there's no other company in the accommodation sector that is able to do that. Yeah? There's a one-on-one connection. So it's 100% personalized service, only thanks to these guys. So we want to make sure that they feel as valued, that they are as much of a part of the company as we, the employees, are. And that's one way of doing it. So really keeping them involved into the company, into the strategy, discussing and having a dialogue about where our roadmap is, what we should do, what we shouldn't do. And we're doing that in Paris. So a very exciting time for us. And then at the same time, and this is another impact, and it's a showcase of how we are able to help cities be successful. There are several big events. Those are unique events that are happening throughout the year, where there's much more people wanting to go to these events than accommodation for them to stay. Yeah, the best example is the Olympics. So a couple of years ago, the heads of the Rio Olympic Organization Committee came to us and said, hey, we have this issue. We're not going to be able to accommodate all of the people that want to come over for the Olympics in Rio. Is there something that we could do together? So we put a task force on it. We went looking for different types of accommodation, did a campaign in Rio to see how people can help out and can, via Airbnb, put their spare spaces that they have available for the Olympics, put them on the platform. And the result was that we are now an official accommodation partner for the Rio Olympics. So the Olympics is one example. We have Mobile World Congress. There's the Pope visit in the US. So those are unique events where obviously the elasticity of supply that we are able to offer can make these events and can make these unique venues, can make them much more successful. It's true, though, that the company has grown a lot. So if you take a look where we were in 2009, 2001, so the company was founded in 2008, 2009, we were pretty much still a US company. At the moment, we are a US company, but we're a European business. 53% of our business is generated in Europe, and that has traditionally changed. So if you take a look, and it's an interesting package, but if you take a look at how the growth has happened and has transformed throughout the region, at the moment, our biggest base in terms of business is Europe, but our biggest growth region is Asia. Yeah, so we're investing a lot in Asia simply because that's the future, right? And it's quite complicated, but in our business, which is a global business, this is something that we want to make sure that it's not just the Europeans or the Americans that can feel at home in the respective regions, but it's really a global thing. Yeah, we want 7 billion people to feel that they belong wherever they're traveling. So at the moment, we have 1.7 million homes on Airbnb, 34,000 cities, and 191. The last one we added, you've probably seen it, the last one we added to our list is Cuba, a very exciting city. I think it's a unique opportunity for the city to go there, but it's a truly global phenomenon. Yeah, it's not something that is happening in a specific department, a specific region, in a specific country. This is something that is happening across the board. So there's a lot of people who are at the moment saying, this is a given, we can probably embrace it. And if you take a look here, this is a map of Paris. I don't know if you see all the dots, but the blue dots represent the hotels that are operating in the center of Paris. And if you overlay that with the amount of listings that we have at Airbnb, it's basically showing two things. Yeah, it's showing that there's decentralization. In decentralization, on the geographic side, there's no better example, there's no better way to explain it than showing it. It's decentralizing all of the tourism that traditionally has happened in the center of the cities to some of the other regions that have traditionally not really benefited from tourism. And that's something that I think is really important, that those are some of the important discussions that whenever we talk to city halls, whether it's in Paris, in Barcelona, or in New York, those are some of the things that we bring to the table. And the other thing is, there's a decentralization allowing individuals to participate into a flow of wealth that is the tourism industry. So I was before in a session where we were saying tourism, for Spain at least, is the biggest industry. It represents 14–15% of the GDP. So we are allowing now, in terms of crisis, people, individuals, to participate in some of that wealth that is being generated. So there's a dual redistribution happening, the geography one, and then from traditional corporations to individuals. But it's true, the global community has grown. So if you take a look at where we are at the moment, it took us a couple of years to take off. But at the moment, more than 55 million people have traveled with Airbnb. And about half of those have just traveled in the last 9 months. Yeah, so it's an exponential business, a global business that is happening and that is transforming the cities. So if you take a look, I have put in a couple of examples, but Paris is a good one. Yeah? Paris is our #1 city. So Paris, New York, London, Barcelona are some of our top cities. And if you take a look, and these are data that is about 2 years old, but at the time, about 2 years ago, Airbnb generated about $240 million to the economy of Paris. Yeah, that's an important data. So when we talked to the Paris City Hall, what they were afraid of is that the center of Paris was becoming a little bit of a ghost town where only tourists were coming in, and so the prices would raise. They wanted to maintain the original identity of the city center into a way that locals were able to pay their rents. And the rents were going up, inevitably, right? The rents were going up, so by hosting on Airbnb, they were able to pay the augmented rent and keep on living where they're living. A recent survey, for example, has shown that 53% of our hosts that are renting out on Airbnb, that are using that income to make ends meet, 53% is saying that without this income, I wasn't able to live where I'm living at the moment. That's a huge number. Yeah? It's a scary, huge number. So it's creating a huge impact on individuals and on cities. If you take another example, Berlin. So Berlin, we have generated 100 million. It's not as much of a destination powerhouse as Paris, for example. But 77% are still outside of the main tourism areas. And that's a recurring fact that we see. In San Francisco, it's another great example of decentralization. Yeah? So 60% of the guest spending is outside of the main tourism areas, of the main tourism destination areas. Amsterdam is a great example. We have a really good relationship with the city of Amsterdam because they've been one of the very first to embrace the sharing economy, to really see the potential of it and use it to its benefit. And if you take a look at the visitors, the typical visitor of Amsterdam, so on the hotel side versus on the Airbnb side, so we see that our typical travelers, obviously there's a size of wallet, so we have a certain budget in order to travel, and we save some money, but we're able to spend that money staying longer, right? So the average Airbnb guest stays about double the amount of time, the amount of nights compared to the people that are staying at a hotel, and they're spending more during their entire stay. Yeah, so there's again, a redistribution effect. They're spending that money into the local shops, so there's no, I am having breakfast at the buffet downstairs or I'm ordering room service anymore. Right now, the breakfast is being spent by eating a pincho de tortilla at the corner, which is the best one that has ever been made in Spain. Right? So there's much more authentic and much more local experience, and that's really what people are looking for. 93%, that's one of the numbers that really impressed me. 93% of the guests that travel with us wants to stay like a local, wants to live like a local and really feel that they belong in that neighborhood. So this is a little bit the impact that it's generating on the cities. And if we think about it, so the company is 8 years old, was founded in San Francisco, and where we've come from, 3 guys, 3 airbeds, renting it out in order to pay their rent, a very humble problem, to a business that's a quite sizable business, as you've seen, where we are now, that is transforming industries, that is impacting cities, and that is providing an additional income for hundreds of thousands of families. This is a pretty good example, I think, and it's, at least for me, it's a pretty good example for what an entrepreneurial experience can lead up to. So with that, I'm going to thank you very much for the attention. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. That was fascinating, wasn't it? Now that is innovation. Now the next speaker is going to talk about something a little different. The interesting thing about this speaker is that he's probably the best example of the American dream that you're going to see at this event. The son of immigrants, he became a used car salesman. But this is not a normal used car salesman. He actually broke the record for selling used cars in his company. 34 cars in 1 month. That's a lot. That's more than one a day. He then became friendly with someone from AOL. Started to work at AOL. Then he started his own little company building websites. And then the rest of his is history. This guy is one of the biggest movers and shakers in the world of venture capital in the United States. And now he's going to talk to us about the intersection between venture capital, technology companies, and cities. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Paul Singh.
Thanks so much. Well, hello. You know, I have to say, 10 years ago, so I was an immigrant, like you said. If you'd said 10 years ago I'd be sitting in a bullfighting ring in Madrid talking about some of the nerdy stuff I've been doing for the last 5 or 10 years, I'd probably think you were crazy, but I suppose here we are. Anyway, it's a pleasure to be here. I won't bore you to death with my life story, but I'll just tell you that I was an immigrant to the US from India originally. I got my first real job at America Online. You guys may not know that, but it was really sort of that was the first company that really pushed people onto the internet in the late 90s and the early 2000s. And before you think anything special, I'll just tell you, I was probably the lowest employee there. They wouldn't even let me touch the computers. I got to move the boxes, like the cardboard boxes around. I was a bricklayer, I was all these things. Anyway, so started a hosting company. Have sold 3 tech companies now that I founded. About 5 years ago, I was one of the first 3 partners at 500 Startups with Dave McClure and Christine Tsai. And then 2 years ago, I left to raise my own $50 million fund that we closed last year. But then also experiment with this idea of, what if you tried to rebuild an entire city? It sounds kind of crazy when you say it that way, I suppose. But let's get to that in just a minute. Let me ask a question. Why are technology companies important? Not all at once, you guys. Not all at once. What is it? Create jobs, that's right. What else? What is it? Solve problems, yeah. Those are right answers, but I'll say I believe, those are true, I agree with those, but I believe one of the reasons they're really important is that in any industrialized nation, technology tends to be the fundamental driver of growth. So to put that into perspective, 1,000 years ago, let's remember that the pencil was technology. 500 years ago, the printing press was technology. 100 years ago, the steam engine was technology. Today, it's your laptops, it's your phones. Do we agree? I can't tell if you think I suck or not, but by the way, heckling is allowed. If you think I'm full of shit, just say it, and we'll just go drink a beer together. It'll be good. But so once you have roads and you have houses and you have government and you're safe and you have all these things, technology tends to be the only way that a society moves forward. The second reason why tech companies are so valuable or important is because, frankly, they are one of the last legal ways to make a ton of money. If you want to change your station in life, right, technology tends to be the way to do it. There's a lot of other illegal ways to do it, but this is probably one of them that won't send you to jail. But does that make sense? Yeah, you guys are a tough crowd. I can't tell. But look, the world's changed. The world's changed. So, there's a lot of charts here. All you have to know is that they're all going up and to the right. The chart on the top right is the global size of the SaaS market, right? I mean, almost all of you probably have one recurring charge on your credit card, right? And 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the idea of you paying $10 a month for something on the internet, $10 a month for something on the internet was crazy. And today, you don't think anything of it, right? So the world's changed. The chart on the right here is showing you the number of smartphone subscriptions per year. The shorter chart is the number of tablets per year. This is also an interesting opportunity for us. In the US, the way that we were exposed to the internet was that we started with a desktop, right? We started with a desktop, then we got laptops, then we got smartphones, and then we got tablets. The rest of the world, they skipped most of that, right? So when you look at Asia, for example, the way that Asia is growing, India is growing, they didn't start with desktops. They didn't start with laptops. The vast majority of society got online through smartphones. It's a very interesting opportunity there, and I'm just setting this up for the city piece, I promise. And the third thing, just kind of continuing that, is that mobile continues to become the primary way that people get on the internet. You know, in places like India, you've got companies. So, for example, the Amazon.com of India has no website. Right? It's mobile only. It's mobile only. And that's really fascinating because they know, why should they invest in making a desktop-friendly, laptop-friendly experience when everybody's accessing it via smartphones and tablets? So that's another really interesting thing. And then the fourth interesting thing, I think, is that related to why tech companies are important to cities, is that this is the only place that R&D is coming from. This is the only place that innovation is coming from. So, for example, the chart on the left, these are US numbers, but I assume, I'm actually pretty sure the Spanish numbers line up, and pretty much everybody in the EU lines up with this. These are charts that are 50 years in the making. So on the left, you're seeing federal, like government level, federal level R&D spending as a percentage of GDP. So over the last 50 years, we spend, as a society, less and less at the government level to fund this. And on the right is corporate R&D. So if you want to make the world better, it comes from the tech companies, the startups in this room, because frankly, nobody else is investing in it. And so that brings us to where we are now, which is that economic development has changed. And this is probably not a very sexy topic, but let me just ask you, why do people move to different cities? Why do people move to different cities? Opportunities, what was it? More opportunities. That is right. People move, if you just look at all the research, people move because there's greater economic opportunities for them. Now they'll stay because the quality of life is good. They'll stay because the cost of living is low. But let's be very clear that what brings people to cities is economic opportunity. And that's what economic development is. So economic development is over because the age of the industrial city is over. When we look at the Midwest of the United States, for example, a lot of our cities there are built around large manufacturing plants, right? So car factories, plate factories, paper plate factories, timber factories, all these things. But the world's changed now. You can't build a safe place, a city that has economic opportunity if your entire strategy as a city is to bring more factories. I mean, look, I'm going to be very presumptuous here, but I'm pretty sure nobody in this room is the kind of person that is aspiring, and I say this carefully, you're not going to go work in a factory. You would not move. Is this a true statement? Would you move to a city because there are a lot of factory jobs there for you? And yet, so everybody's saying no, and yet, most of our cities, when they think about economic development in the US and in the EU, think a lot about economic development in the sense of, well, let's just bring more factories. If we bring more factories, life will be good. It doesn't work anymore because now it's possible to build billion-dollar companies in T-shirts from a couch, from anywhere. Right? So there's a little asterisk on this because you can start anywhere, but you still need some place to build your company. That's probably the fancy way to say it right there, but the point is, for anybody that's ever worked at home, if you've ever worked at home for your job, you know that on the first day of working from home, you're like, hey, this is amazing. And then like the third day, you're sitting there and you're like, oh man, I wish I could talk to another human. And then like the fifth day, you're like, fuck, I'm talking to the dog now. It's because it's human nature. You can start anywhere, but human nature, you want to be around other people like yourself. And so if you think about the last 5 years, think about what you've seen but not noticed, which is the rise of the co-working space. You guys all have, you guys know what co-working spaces are, right? Did they exist 5 years ago? No. The nature of work has changed. More of us are independent. More of us are mobile. More of us can actually work from a beach somewhere or an office here. It's all the same. You don't know where the person you're calling is actually sitting. But again, this is where the opportunity is for cities. Diving into the research a little bit, what we see is that the more urban the center, the more prosperous that center. The better way to say it is that there's a near perfect correlation between the number of small companies in a city or a town and the later growth of that region. I mean, that doesn't seem like rocket science, but most people don't think about it that way. The point is, the more small businesses there are in a city, the richer that city gets. I mean, that's real research, and I'll tell you how to get these slides and the citations at the end here. But here's sort of the dirty secret, and that is that tech companies will never create the majority of jobs. They'll never create the majority of jobs, but they have a disproportionately positive effect on the economy. This is probably the way to say it, but this kind of pisses off a lot of people. But what happens in the tech community, what happens in the startup sector, will determine the salary of most people in that region, whether they work in tech or not. Think about that. The average income for a technology company employee is higher than the median of any region. So I don't know the numbers here, for example, for Madrid, but if you look at Washington, D.C., the average income there is $90,000 US. That's a 50-mile radius with something like 5 million people or something like that. It's about $90,000. The average income for a startup employee that has revenue is about $122,000. Now that delta, the difference, that $30,000 difference, what do people do when they make more money? We know we should save money, but we don't. We go out to a bar more often. We buy more clothes for our children. We take our families out on vacations, but we spend the money, right? And when you spend that money, what happens? You end up creating more jobs. That is the basis of economic development. That is why technology companies are so important. But there's something interesting here as well to consider. When you think about how cities are built today, we as a society, we think about, well, if we bring in another restaurant, maybe people will want to live here. If we bring in another school, maybe people want to live here. But the reality is, even though the majority of jobs in every country on the planet are what are called local services, so your local hairdresser, your local nail salon, your local plumber, even though those are the majority of jobs on the planet, they are the effect of economic development, not the cause. So if you bring another plumber and you tell a plumber to start a business here, that doesn't make Madrid better. It doesn't make Madrid worse, but it doesn't make it better. Ultimately, what will make Madrid better, what will make any of your cities better, is if you think about where growth comes from. It comes from the entrepreneurs in this room. So proximity is valuable, and modern economic development is really about people. And I'm gonna just keep this idea in the back of your head because we're gonna jump into some examples here in just a minute. But it's really about people. None of you ever woke up one morning and you said, I'm gonna go work at that office because, man, that office looks so nice. You wake up actually and you say, I met this cool person at this co-working place. I'm gonna go over there. Is that true? So here's the opportunity. For the investors in the room, we know that there's been a rise of seed investing all across the world. And we also know that there's a gauntlet, that there's sort of a bit of a crunch going into the Series A. One of the opportunities for us as investors now is to think about how do you pick the companies that are going through that crunch? Let's say they've gone through an accelerator in Kansas in the United States, or they've gone through an accelerator in Bangalore, India. But they're not maybe ready for a Series A, but they're still looking like a pretty good business. What if you invested in them and you brought them here? What if you did that? Because again, there's a big opportunity right after the seed round, but before the A level. There's a really interesting opportunity there. And so that's what we did. So for those of you that might have ever been to Washington, D.C., that's the city there. You can kind of see across the river. That airport right there is Washington Reagan Airport. That's the DCA airport code. You can get there in about, 11 hours flying from here. But that city on the left side is Crystal City. It's about 8 million square feet. I guess in meters, it's about 800,000 square meters. So we took over the entire thing 2 years ago. Like, we really took it over. I put my face on every lamppost, every bus, every train, everything. It was crazy. It was actually like my mother wasn't sure if it was illegal or if, like, you know, it's just weird. But the idea was we were going to change the way that the city was going to be run, and we were going to start by telling people that there was somebody new that was running it. And so within 2 years, now when we took over, that city had 50% vacancy. 50%. So for anybody in commercial real estate, you know that's bad. That's really bad. Half of the buildings sat empty for at least 10 years. We had only about 4,000 people that would come to that city, even though it's a 5-minute train ride from downtown Washington, D.C. 4,000 people for 8 million square feet. It was crazy. I mean, it was losing money. Within 2 years, so if you just look at the numbers right now, 2 years, we took it over in July or August of 2013. Today, we're at something like 7% vacancy, and we have 60,000 people a week that come there. And we have everything from large companies that have taken leases with us. We have small companies. We have startups. We have celebrity chefs. Actually, I suppose for the Spaniards in the room, I'm going to say his name wrong, but Jose Andres, you guys know who that is? Yeah, so he's opened a restaurant with us, and, you know, great food. Now, every time I come to Madrid and I eat food here, I realize Jose's overcharging me. It's like, I got a little thing of, you know, he has like a little plate of ham. By the way, nobody tweet that. He's a nice guy. He's a capitalist. I love it. But like a little plate of like artisanal ham is like $30 over there, and I go to the market here and it's like $3. I'm like, oh man, all right. Anyway, but the point is though, is that you can build a city, you can rebuild a city, and believe it or not, it starts with the startups. So, you know, we have Lockheed Martin that opened up Lockheed Martin, they build defense, they build defense systems, missiles and destroyers and things like that, satellites, spaceships. They moved their R&D department into Crystal City because their employees love being around the smart entrepreneurs, right? But we also have guys like Jose that open restaurants because remember, he knows that they are making a little bit more money than the average, and they're going to pay $30 for a plate. And so it worked. My point here is simply that it worked. And just as a little bit of a teaser, actually, I should say, is that I spend a lot of time now thinking about where we'll do it next. Crystal City's operating, it's running, it's doing well, it's growing, it's continuing to grow. The question now for us is where do we apply it next? And we're an open book. You guys should take any of these ideas and think about how to use them in your own towns. But, I spend a lot of time thinking about, okay, do we do it in rural Kansas? Do we do it here in Madrid? Do we do it somewhere else? So, just jumping past that, look, the private market, all of these startups, everything's more accessible, everything's more transparent. For the founders and the investors in the room, there's no excuse for, pitching a bad idea anymore, right? So, for example, if you want to come to Crystal City and work there, you got to have a business. Now, you could have one customer, but you got to have a business. But everything's online. So for example, at 500 Startups, we put all of our slides online. All these other VCs blog. But everything's becoming more efficient. So for the founders in the room, for the investors in the room, even for the economic development or political folks in the room, I think the two things that are really important is to think about focusing on traction. And it doesn't have to be a lot of traction, but if you're going to bring somebody to your city, think about the traction they have. Don't worry about the idea. Think about the traction. But also think about, for the founders especially, learn to communicate and inspire people. Right? We're sitting here in a venue. I think this is the third year of South Summit? And you've got, I don't know, it seems like 1,000+ people coming to the event. But just think of that. There's 1,000 people trying to start a business. And so for the founders in the room, in order to step out of that noise, not only do you have to have traction, but you have to learn how to communicate what you're doing. But the same goes for the city builders in the room. Your city, like any city, feels like no different from any other city. But if you start to think about what is traction for your city and how do you communicate that, I think you can do some interesting things. So I'll just kind of fast forward here through this. And I'll just say, I won't read all that, but I'll just tell you, one of the other ideas as you think about your personal careers, by the way, is that every one of you is credible. Every one of you is credible. You're here, right? What you should focus on today in 2015, 2016, really, is to think about how do you become more notable, right? Let's assume you're all credible. You've all gone to school. You're all probably pretty good at what you do, right? And yet, when you meet people, even when I'm in this hallway, people will say like, hey, I'll say, hey, what do you do? And they'll say, well, I went to school here, I work for this company or whatever. And like 5 minutes into it, we still haven't talked about what you do, right? You're trying to establish credibility. You already have it. So we'll come back to where we started, which is that if you want to make Madrid better, you want to make Spain better, you want to make the world better, it starts with the tech companies, the startups that are in this room. That will be the fundamental driver for the entire industrialized world. And again, we did this in a little place called Crystal City where it was half empty. That was like a really bad place to start, but it worked. And you can do that. You can do that. So I hope you'll take some of this stuff and use it in your own towns. I'm happy to help in any way I can. My email is cut off there, but it's just paul@resultsjunkies.com. Actually, if you just go there, you can sign up, and I'll send you the slides as well if you like them. But thank you for having me, and enjoy the rest of the day.
All right. Let's get some music here. Okay. All right, we got 2 more sessions before we end. It's sad, but these 2 days are almost over. This next group panel is going to talk to us about opportunities in the venture capital industry. It's my honor to introduce to you the moderator of this panel, Phil Wickham. Phil is the founder, chairman, president of Kauffman Fellows. Kauffman Fellows, for those of you that don't know, is probably the #1 organization dedicated to spreading the VC community through education and practice. Ladies and gentlemen, Phil Wickham.
Be quick. Okay, done. We're done?
Hey, everybody.
All right.
So we're going to bring you home with this last panel.
Look much better with.
We're going to talk about thunder lizards and opportunities and challenges in the venture world. If you guys want this, I'm feeling there wouldn't be that many people here because it's the end of the day. If you want to move down, you can, because I'm actually going to open this up for questions towards the middle of the event. Anybody who knows what a thunder lizard is? Anybody know who coined the phrase thunder lizard? Anybody knows who coined it? No? Mike Maples of Floodgate, one of the best venture guys in the world, coined the phrase. How many of you are entrepreneurs in the audience? Hands up. Keep your hands up if you think you're going to be raising money in the next year. Okay. We'll be hopefully talking to you mostly. How many of you are investors? Okay. How many of you have been investing for more than 10 years? Okay, not that many. All right, good. Well, let's get started. Can I invite the panel to come out here and join me?
For you.
I'll make a quick group introduction for you. It'll save them all long introductions. These 5 funds in front of you are the 5 best funds in the world, and you'd be thrilled to have any of them invested in your company. And these 5 people are the 5 best venture capitalists in the world, and you'd love to have any of them on your board. So now you guys don't have to do any promotion.
I like it. I hate it when you underestimate us.
So I'd like to kick it off. I live in Silicon Valley, and there's this ongoing debate between the likes of Mark Suster and Mark Andreessen, who see a very, very positive state of the venture world, and then you might have read that Bill Gurley is skeptical about some of the the unicorns and the things that are going on. So I wanted to open up to all of you, and maybe Carolina, I could start with you and ask you all to just quickly introduce your name and the fund that you're with. But talk about your personal view and maybe your fund's view of your level of optimism about the industry, and the sort of things that you might be a little worried about. Would you mind kicking us off?
Of course. So I'm Carolina, and I work at Atomico. Should I set off and answer the question? So, you know, I think no one really knows what's going to happen to the economy generally, regionally, like in China or even globally. But at the same time, I think that there's some trends now that are pervasive and different. So if you just think about, you know, the number of connected devices at 50 billion, the time that people are spending online is 8 times higher than in the early 2000s, 2.2 billion smartphones, and then just a lot of technologies that are, you know, becoming utilities. They're making people's lives easier, faster, and cheaper. So, for instance, I cover fintech, and I think payments is a huge example of that. If you think about someone, you know, a merchant taking a business online with Shopify or payments with Stripe or, you know, something like Square or iZettle. And then now in London, Londoners paying the two with Apple Pay. I think that, you know, no matter what happens, there are certain technologies that are there to stay. And I think some of the argument is around unit economics. And certainly, you know, I think it's also focused around the Valley and a little bit of what's going on there, which is a bit different than here. But at the same time, I think that if you're a business changing things and you're mindful of the economics, then, you know, I'm more on the bullish side than not.
Alex?
That's helpful. I'm Alex. I'm with Salesforce Ventures, and because we're focused entirely on enterprise, I think we have a slightly, you know, we view the world as, you know, a lot of our investments are SaaS-based, recurring businesses, where, you know, kind of in the long term, we think the biggest issue we have is less about companies sustaining, given a lot of the business models that are in place when we invest. It's more around some of the hype around the valuations and certain entrepreneurs kind of wanting that for the sake of, you know, this word unicorn, kind of wanting the valuation for the sake of that. And the nice thing about enterprise businesses is that because, you know, the revenue stream is very predictable, you can kind of understand what the business looks like, even if it's growing rather than 100% at 60%. We take that view around, you know, from a longevity perspective, we like to see businesses that can kind of survive that, if there is that kind of downturn. And SaaS businesses are very prone to that. I think where things get dangerous is where unjustifiably companies are looking for that valuation before they're ready, and it kind of can cause issues down the line. So, you know, certain companies are able to get that valuation today, but at the same time, the best entrepreneurs kind of are heads down, building a great business, a sustainable business, and they let the valuation follow rather than the other way around. So that's kind of what we're attracted to.
Easy.
First, I'd like to say hola a todos. Estoy encantado de estar aquí en Madrid. You know, we forget, sometimes we can ask these questions anywhere and be immersed in ourselves, but it's really great to be here and see the energy. I'm extremely optimistic, to answer your question, about the future. And I think for the first time, you can start challenging these existing industries that's been going for a while and completely transform them through technology. I was just recently at the Google Play conference for developers, and they were giving some stats about smartphones, and there's 1.5 billion Android phones. There's 1.5 million activated every day. It's a huge opportunity. And if you start looking at it across industries, I think that entrepreneurs today have the ability to do things that they weren't able to do a few years ago. And we sometimes forget, but the iPhone only came out in 2007, so this is pretty recent. And there's a bigger question of whether there's a bubble or no bubble. I think it's very different from what you've seen in the 2000 era.
I'm Yuval Almog, and I'm part of the Coral Group. We think there are 2-3 mega trends that will define the next cycle of opportunities. For us, probably the number one is what we call the ascent of the subscriber-centric world, meaning we think that a lot of things, the internet will, almost anything we do in our life today will be governed not, pardon me, Google, but by the subscribers. go along with it, section number 2, we believe that the entire fabric of the telecommunication industry has to change dramatically to accommodate for this new world. And we think that that is another mega opportunity to go after.
I'm Michael, I'm with Excel. Look, I think it's all been said. I think on the one hand, we're super bullish about innovation and opportunities today. It's never been a better time to start companies, and there's never been more exciting stuff to go after as an entrepreneur. On the flip side, I think what we're a little bit worried about is the valuations that a lot of time just put a lot of pressure on what it means to be successful these days, and you really have to play everything right and take advantage of every opportunity to really justify those. And I think ultimately those are separate things. So we're very excited about the industry and where it's going. And as every investor should, we're sort of, I think, thinking hard about valuations and risk reward, which is the other side of the coin.
And Michael, just to follow up, I mean, Excel's got a few companies in the portfolio that you got into early that are valued very high, extremely high in the private markets. Is there a detriment to Accel in any way for those companies to be sitting there on such high valuation purchase in this environment, or is it generally just seen as because it's absolutely cheap capital for your companies to grow, but is there anything that worries you about it coming back to bite you?
I mean, look, I think net what we care about is the outcome. The stuff in the middle is kind of noise, right? So latest round valuation, I think it's all around what we focus on is how is the underlying business doing, right? And then, but to answer your question, what can be the downside is, of course, if you have some very high valuation that you did on the last round, and then the next round presumably has to be higher because there is momentum, there were options that were being struck, employee morale, and then it turns out that the next round maybe doesn't have that, and so you get into trouble with that. So I think you want to stay with valuations proportional to where you are as a business, right? So it can be completely detached. Otherwise, eventually, these things end badly for sure.
So Michael, I'll just start with you on the next question. I'll open up to whoever wants to respond to it. But when I came in the industry 20 years ago, it was very small. It was a few $1 billion globally. It's a few $100 billion now. It's a couple of orders of magnitude larger, depending on how you measure it. It's probably easier to get in today and much, much harder to succeed. And how long have you been in the industry, in the venture industry?
10 years, probably.
How many?
10-ish, 10.
10 years. And could you talk a little bit, I'm going to open it up, a little bit about your own strategy for emerging from the noise, and maybe a little bit about how you think about your personal brand and your reputation within the entrepreneurial community. How do you want entrepreneurs to see you?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So it's become much tougher. So I think we as an industry, we sort of face the same forces as entrepreneurs do in terms of, disruption and innovation. You have the whole topic about crowdfunding and an angel list, which is interesting, and then also, the use of technology, right? So sort of 10, 20 years ago, you sort of had a couple of firms that were all side by side on Sand Hill, and everybody knew about them, and it was just a matter of showing up at, ideally Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday, and open the door. And today, people tweet and blog, and so there's a lot of competition out there, and so I think we all try to sort of look what's happening, and then you have, firms coming into the market that are very, aggressive and very strong about marketing, and we are trying to figure out, how do we want to react to that, right? Because on the one hand, we have an existing brand and we have sort of a track record, but on the other hand, we want to be aware that we're, at risk of being disrupted just like everyone else, right? And so what does that mean specifically? I tweet very irregularly, so everyone follow me on Twitter. If half of you guys follow me on Twitter, I will double my follower count, which would be pretty impressive. So literally just do it right now.
That's all your commercial time, though. Back to the question.
Well, it kind of answers the question, but I think that's part of it. It's sort of trying to be out there and meet people. I mean, in the end, so I think it's two things, right? So one is being part of a platform that provides value add and where you can go back to your brand, which is actually just a track record, right? So the brand itself is nothing. It's it's sort of the sum of previous investments and things that we have done that we can point back to entrepreneurs. So that's one part. And the other part is, I personally, as Michael, what can I add? A, do you like me as a person? B, what do you think about my advice? And do you think that I can be a trusted advisor for you, which is ultimately the role I'd like to play with entrepreneurs I work with, right? And there, to become a trusted advisor probably doesn't matter as much if I'm from Excel or some other firm. It ultimately, do people trust what I say and trust my judgment, right? And that's just, how do I get that across? By trying to be really thoughtful and charismatic and everything at the same time. And it's difficult. I'm not very good at it, but I'm working on it.
Yuval, just cutting to the chase, same question, but also you've been doing this for a while. How would you want your entrepreneurs to describe you? Those who've worked with you. Carolina is asking me. You've backed me, and she's now going to take money from you. And she said, "What's this guy like?" And I'll say, "Yuval is following." How would you want the entrepreneurs to describe you?
It's a self-serving question here.
Commercial time.
Well, I think that
it doesn't mean it's how they describe you, but how would you want them to describe you?
I think that if they will say the truth, they will say that we add a lot of value to what they do. That's obviously a modest statement. No, I really think that we straight shooters. We tell them as it is, the way we think it is. When we think that they are thinking too small, we tell them to think bigger. When they think too big, we never slow them down.
I would say that the focus is not so much on personal brands and more on building great companies. And the entrepreneur is really the star of this show, and we're there to help them achieve, the maximum that they can. And we're doing it together as a partnership, so everyone brings obviously their own personality, their own interests, their own passion. But ultimately, when you are able to marry this passion with the entrepreneur's passion, and it doesn't feel like work. And I would say as a firm, our focus is really on trying to add value in constructive ways, whether it's the partners themselves, through the work that we do on boards, etc., the support functions we've built inside Google Ventures around design, recruiting, business development, marketing, PR, etc. We have a large team, and there's many people whose job is to support our portfolio companies, so we work closely with them. And then finally, with the access to Google, there's a lot of smart folks at Google that can be very helpful to these companies, and in many cases provide another perspective or help validate assumptions or have a very useful chat. So when I speak to companies, I usually have that in the back of my head and thinking about the big bets and the big problems that there are to solve in the industry, and how can this company do it and how I can help them do it.
What are you passionate about? What passion do you bring to
outside
the
of work, or
no, just in your role as a venture capitalist? What do you respond to?
I really cherish the opportunity to work with people that are on a mission to revolutionize their industry. And one example is a company called Cobalt Music Group, which was our first investment outside of the US. And this company is really revolutionizing the world of music and payments for artists. And the goal here is to add transparency and get content creators paid with full transparency, 6 months sooner, 20% more. And it's literally, changing the music industry. And it's now a very relevant topic. So, I feel that it's a privilege to find these sort of entrepreneurs that build great teams around them and then help support them in whatever way we can. So it's, I find that opportunity to do that very, very inspiring. But what interests me personally in terms of areas, so I think like Alex, I think enterprise and serving businesses and sort of like doing things differently in the business world is really exciting. I'm interested in machine learning and artificial intelligence. I find that that's an area that's going to leapfrog a lot of the challenges we've seen and do things differently. And I'm interested in, in big markets like security, like HR tech, real estate, fintech, markets that have huge potential. So even if you're a small player, you still have even a small bite can be of a very big pie, and you can build a large, successful company.
And so you might agree with Yuval's philosophy of, think bigger, think bigger, think bigger for the entrepreneurs. You like that?
Yeah, totally, totally. I think that it's
You can
kind
sit
of-
next to me.
I'll come next to you.
Sit on his lap. Alex,
I think the reality is that, and it's a reality we all face, the best entrepreneurs always have choice. And that's just a reality of
a choice
with which venture capital firm to go with, and who, at the end of the day, to us, it really is a bit of a marriage, right? Because it is a very long-term game, and I think where we can unify what the entrepreneur is looking to do and what we're excited about as a space, I think that's a magical moment, because you asked what's your kind of favorite, what you're passionate about. For me, it's really about discovering and understanding what gets an entrepreneur out of bed every morning. Why is it that they're out? Most of the entrepreneurs we back could go out and work for a big company overnight, make a lot more, cash straight away. They're going through the hardships of building something out of nothing and asking, understanding the rationale behind that. And that's hugely exciting, and I think it aligns very well where a Salesforce business, 16 years ago, kind of coming into cloud, that market didn't exist. And so we can relate to that and really try to leverage that ecosystem around us to help those companies succeed. So I think, I always advise companies to think of this as a marriage with their venture capitalists. It's a very long-term bet, unlike selling a company where you're done and out in a lot of ways. Accepting capital is very much about having that fit on both sides. And it's important to get that alignment before you kind of take the capital, because it is a 7 to 10 year bet on both sides.
It's a lot like a marriage, except it's more expensive to get out of. So,
prenup.
Carolina, anything to add to that?
I think I did on the point of how we think about ourselves in terms of investors. I think we really hope to be a toolkit, right, for our companies, and sort of, and the Waze founder always says it best, that entrepreneurship is like a walk in the desert that could last a very long time. So I wouldn't say that we want to be the camel, so to speak, but you want to be something that beyond the capital the entrepreneur can draw on, be it a sounding board, being relationships, be it help with hiring. Anything that throughout that journey, which will change, you can just sort of remain calm and help them out in whatever way possible. And so that's, I think, for entrepreneurs when they're looking, as you say, it's very competitive. It's, find an investor that's really aligned with your long-term vision, and, because the road is long, and, can help you get there with more than just the money.
If there was one word that an entrepreneur would use to describe you, what would you want it to be? Carolina is blank. What is she?
I think it would be, I don't know that this is the perfect word, but hopefully something like attentive, or sort of, just caring. So I think being there for the entrepreneur is the most important. We have several portfolio companies, sometimes globally, doing many different things, and I think it's really important to pay attention to your entrepreneur throughout sort of the journey, be it a good journey or a difficult journey or a very easy one. Because that's all they're doing, that's their sole focus. And so I think if you don't pay attention throughout, you're sort of failing them a little bit.
How many people here know venture capitalists? Just know some, worked with some. How many think they're caring and attentive? Right, it's a good differentiation strategy, because it doesn't look like there's any. One word, Alex, how would you want the entrepreneur to describe you? You can be caring and attentive too. You can build on the idea.
I'd love to be that. I think I'd probably the word that comes to mind is inquisitive. Because,
Inquisitive, okay.
Yeah, because I think ultimately our
one word, good. That's a good word. Let's easy.
Awesome.
Awesome. That's it. Everybody knows that.
I think it's all encompassing, because you need to be there for the bad times too.
Give us one word. What's one specific word?
I think,
all right. Yuval, what's one word you'd like to have them describe you?
Awesomer.
Awesomer.
See where this is going.
Awesomest.
More awesomer.
Impactful.
All right. One quick question, and then I'll open up, see if there's any questions in the audience. But just for any of you, I know that everybody here likes big ideas and disruptive ideas. What gets you to work on a deal? What gets you excited besides somebody coming in with a very big idea? What attracts you to an entrepreneur? What gets you to, I think most entrepreneurs know now that venture capitalists have a giant mountain of opportunities, and it's important to get to the small pile, the one that you spend time on. What are some of the traits or things that you see in an opportunity or entrepreneur that gets you to spend time on it? Whoever wants to answer it.
I would say it's quite simply, does this individual have the magnetism such that I feel I wake up wanting to go work for this person? And I think the best CEOs have that, because it is a long journey, and you kind of have to carry that torch. As an example, we just invested in CardoDB, a Spanish company that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And the first interaction we had with the team was, they have this energy around them that, as bold as their vision is, you kind of just want to jump in with them. And I think the best entrepreneurs, from winning at deals and actually building a great business, have that quality. It's that slightly combination of being a bit crazy about their vision, but at the same time having what it takes to back it up, which makes me dive in.
Go in the other direction, or slightly other direction. Authenticity, I think, is hugely important.
Authenticity.
I mean, the problem is, so I think everybody wants to be this high-powered, energetic entrepreneur, the go-getter, the one that's really excited, but that's just not what the average population looks like. And I think I just really like the idea of interacting with someone and saying, hey, this person is authentic, they know their strengths and weaknesses, and they are going to be surrounding themselves, hopefully, with people who can augment them, right? And I think if I look at our entrepreneurs, they are anywhere from super charismatic to sort of more quiet and thoughtful, and they all make it work. I think it's more about coming across the way that you are, in fact, and being honest about sort of your strengths and weaknesses.
I'm not sure those two answers are mutually exclusive. I think a lot of the energy comes from, I think authenticity is a core trait. Anybody else want to add any thoughts to that? Yuval?
Smart.
Smart.
Imagination is more important than knowledge. And most importantly, on the business side, he has to know whose custodian is he. Who is it going to take care of in his business? If he's confused about that one, there's a lot of work to be done.
Say it again.
Whose custodian are you? Who are you taking care of in your business?
Whose custodian are you? Easy?
Just add the creative. It's all about doing things differently, right? At the end of the day, whatever we've done so far got us to this point, and these guys are trying to, or girls, women, trying to innovate in their industries and have to do things differently. So I think thinking out of the box is really important. I totally agree with authenticity, and I look for it, integrity, and I think it's an important signal. But also like focus and single-mindedness. There's so many opportunities, and it's so easy to get distracted that I was talking to Ali Partovi yesterday, and you were moderating his talk yesterday, and I totally agree with his opinion, where he said that it's not about not diversifying. You can diversify over time, but you have to give it all for this one idea. And this is why I'm backing you, because I believe in this story, and I want you to try it all the way. And if we change, it's because you already tried all the way, but you have to be focused and have this single-mindedness.
Caroline?
Yeah, I would agree with all of that, and I think maybe the final point to add is you can also tell a lot about co-founders or founders by the people that they have, that ability to attract people. That the CEO might be an 8 out of 10 on something, but if he's hiring 10s out of 10s around him and they're really attracting that talent, then there's something there. And that's a nice indication, which sometimes just in an interaction you're not able to tell. So that's something that we try to spend a lot of time with the team at large, because it's often a really good indication of just the magnetism and authenticity and all these different things of the leadership of that founder.
That's great. I mean, it's some great themes out here for those of you raising money in terms of, I think authenticity is the absolute cornerstone of your. And oftentimes, true authenticity for a great entrepreneur takes you in a bizarre, creative, imaginative direction that's not necessarily popular, that actually looks crazy to most people. And I think the salesmanship, a lot of the things that I'll do is, if you're going to build this company by selling something to somebody who doesn't even know they want it, if they can't sell you, they probably can't sell the customer. And I think that's a great metric, is would you quit your venture job to go work for this person is probably a really good first metric for how to be attracted to a deal. I like that. I've still got questions, but is there a question? I don't know if, tell me a question, I'll repeat it.
Make a deal, what percentage of the
Question.
is right?
So everyone can hear it. The question is for the panelists, when you make a decision, roughly what percentage of that decision is based on sort of intellectual, analytical thinking, and how much of it is maybe emotion or gut? Anybody want to take it?
I'd say that the data sometimes is either something that calls your attention to the company because it has amazing metrics, or it's something that helps you validate your conviction. But the conviction that you have is typically something that, either you've been thinking about that space for a long time and there's something to be done there, and it's your reaction, again, to the magnetism or authenticity of the founder and that team. And I think that, the data and the analysis really backs that up, is the way I think about it.
Probably depends on stage a little bit as well, right? So we're a multi-stage investor. We like to come in early, and so a company that's at the seed or Series A stage is just going to have a lot less metrics than a company that's at the Series B or C stage. And so, it's not perfect. We do get it wrong, and it's probably more of an art than a science. We'd love it to be more scientific, and Michael mentioned venture capital firms getting disrupted, and in some ways, we're thinking about what data we should use in terms of making that decision, but it is a bit of both. And as you grow, and I always say Series B is one of the hardest rounds to raise, because that's probably the point at which that emotional reaction is no longer sufficient. The company has been around long enough and they've been growing for enough time that the traction needs to be there, and there's enough metrics in the business to really overlay that with how you feel about the space, the company, the overall deal.
We love data. As a company, we love data. As a fund, we love data, so we look a lot at that. But I totally agree with what's been said, that it depends on the stage. The earlier stage, there's less data to look at, so the passion really matters. But I think it's still a signal. The emotional is still a signal within the data.
Well, I have a different tack on this. We actually have a process to answer the question you have, and it is, we do all the analytics in the world that we feel we should do, and then at the bottom of the page, we say, what is your judgment, whoever filled the page? And in 100% of the cases, when we follow the analytics at the expense of judgment, we lost. In 100% of the cases where we went after judgment at the expense of analytics, we won. So there you are the answer. We do all these analytics, work day and night, all kind of stuff. At the end of the day, that little paragraph at the bottom of the page from the guy that did the analytics and say, in spite of this, I suggest we do the deal or don't do the deal, we now follow him. We follow that judgment.
I fully agree. I think in venture, it's never the analytics, just to sort of be a bit more extreme. I think the analytics are table stakes, so I think we love data, and I'll do all the analysis in the world. But ultimately, if it's Series A, B, or C, the stage we invest in is so far from the outcome we bet on that just because all the numbers are aligned today, it doesn't really matter, because so many things have to come together until you get where you want to go. And so ultimately, the analytics are check the box, and then what you really invest on is the belief and the thesis and the team, right?
I think that's a great way of saying it. I think the analytics often are the de-risking tool, and venture capitalists de-risk very well, but the great ones then, after de-risking, can be very imaginative, and I think that's where maybe the gut comes in. Is there anybody else that, yeah,
experience with Spanish now.
Okay.
And actually, if US
you have a mic, but I'll repeat it. Okay, and I had that. We have the mic too, so that's good. And I had that question on here as my last question I was going to ask, but we'll ask it now. To talk about Spanish startups and can a Spanish entrepreneur be successful in Spain? And I think part of the message was, is there a requirement at some point for them to relocate to maybe some sort of a money center or resource center like London or New York or the Valley. Any thoughts on the local ecosystem here?
The funds that we are talking about, I mean...
How much presence do they have in
yeah,
Spain?
yeah, yeah.
And are you starting to look here?
I'll take a stab.
Go ahead.
I've been coming to Spain for a few years. When I first joined Google, I was focused on the Spanish market. I've been coming for a few years, and I think I've seen incredible change in the Spanish startup ecosystem. I think the timing is incredible, and the momentum is definitely on your side. In Spain, I met with a few companies during this trip, and I was really impressed. It's, they don't speak, they don't speak to the Spanish market. They speak in the global language of innovation, and they have global ambitions. And I would say that regardless of moving, I think to be successful, Spanish startups need to think global. And it means, having the products in multiple languages. It means targeting multiple markets. It's okay to start from the local market, but really think global. And we're thinking about backing companies. We're thinking about finding the ones that want to dominate the category, or try to at least shoot for the stars. Not so much focus locally, but incredible entrepreneurs, lots of passion, work ethic, and I think great timing. And if you haven't visited Campus Madrid, shameless plug, you should go because it's amazing. But it's also like there's free co-working space and a community of entrepreneurs, which is something that didn't exist, a year ago. And suddenly it's part of the infrastructure here. So you should totally take advantage of it.
One model we've seen work very well is, so I mentioned CartoDB earlier. They've kept the entire product and engineering team in Spain and have a sales and marketing group and team in New York. And that's kind of playing up to the strengths of both markets. I think, as Izzy mentioned, there's incredible momentum here in Spain, but it is a smaller market, and so the company has been able to, really create that culture and keep to its roots. One of the founders is based in Madrid, another founder is based in New York, and the management team goes back and forth. And so building that bridge is easier today than it has ever been, and it's a very big market that they're able to tap into. So kind of flexing up in terms of what works well in your home market, but then making up for what's missing elsewhere is a model that's worked very well in our portfolio.
To add to that, I think you often find that there's some a clustering that happens around, different cities around, be it universities where there's great IP coming out of, or traditional industries, and talent, which will then, have success stories that, those exits will get reinvested into the ecosystems and, will also attract more capital. And I think, examples of that, you have Helsinki and Nokia and a great gaming sort of ecosystem with companies like Rovio and Supercell, and you have like London and FinTech with all the traditional sort of banks and financial services there. And I think in Spain, there's a lot of that coming out of the universities here, great IP, great talent. Similarly, you have big companies investing in technology like Telefonica and Santander, and those things go through these cycles where capital starts to flow in, success stories form, more people go into entrepreneurship, more entrepreneurs invest back in the ecosystem, and which is what we find really exciting. And I think that in Europe, differently than in the US, companies have to go global sooner because their markets are much smaller, and that's what we see too when we pull the trends. And so it's entrepreneurs can come from everywhere, and they should really sort of aspire to play to their strengths in their home markets, but also dream big.
Last question. Whoever gets the microphone. Okay, no pressure.
I would like to know from the companies, the startups you support, how many success, how many fail? What is the ratio, more or less? And if you only focus on technological companies, or you select every kind of company?
So 2 questions in there. Let me see if I can repeat them and get them right. One is how much focus is there on technology in their overall portfolio versus non-technology? And then within that portfolio, what is the success rate? Did I get that right?
Thank you.
We do 100% technology. All that we do is technology. And then the success rate, it sort of depends on how you define success. I think typically, historically, for venture capital, if I look at sort of the typical composition, you'll say that you'll lose money on maybe 20 to 40% of the investments, and then you'll make, you know, the other maybe 40 to 50% are going to be successful companies, and then you have 10% that are going to be very successful.
Those are Excel numbers, not the numbers of the industry.
And kind of made up numbers too, so
probably true for you
I think I just
guys,
diminished
but-
the value of my answer by quite a little bit, yeah. But we only invest in technology, so I know that.
Thoughts for that question?
Go ahead. For us, it's quite easy because it's, you know, within enterprise and B2B and cloud and SaaS. So within technology, we even define it even more narrowly. And, you know, we kind of strive to get as many of our companies to be successful as possible. I think the numbers are, we've invested in 150 companies. About 40 have been acquired. About 10 or so have gone public, and the rest are either, you know, most of them active, and obviously some have fallen away as well.
I would say that beyond, you know, technology is a very wide space, and beyond traditional tech and internet and mobile, life sciences is an area that's really important to us. So in 2014, 34% of the funds we've invested went to life sciences companies, and we have a very strong team on the East Coast in the US doing that. And in terms of the number of investments, we invested in over 200 portfolio companies. I think it's closer to 250. 55 exited, several IPOs. I don't know how many sort of like are considered failures, but I think Michael has a good point that you have to sort of like determine what is failure. Like if a company gets acquired, but it's an acqui-hire, you know, is it a failure? If people, you know, if it ended up being a good outcome for the company, and you know, maybe you just made your money back, it's probably not a success, but I don't know if you call it failure.
Anything else? Well, that's time for us. Would you join me in thanking the panel for spending time and sharing their thoughts? Thank you.
He walked in his way, all the old folks with you can see it up here, it's rolling up my myself. And all the youngest said, but now I roll the top of it. Said I be, said the old folks, we're gonna so you never can tell. We threw it in our apartment on the room, I said.
All right. We got one more session for you, and this is probably one of the most special sessions because we've got the finalists for the tech startups. And I have the pleasure of introducing to you the person that's going to moderate the finalists. This lady has been with tech startups, well, actually 500 startups, for several years, many years. She's originally from Brazil. She started an accelerator in Brazil. And you know what you notice about people in the startup business? They're a lot of fun. Well, if there's anybody that's a lot of fun, it's Betty Yang. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Betty Yang, in charge of Latin America for 500 startups. Betty.
First of all, thank you for sitting into the last session, but very often when I come to conference, one of the most amazing things, it's actually to meet founders. So today we're gonna have 6 founders and also like a panel of jury. And I hope to definitely, like the founders would be able to pitch for 3 minutes, and then you'll hear a little bit from the jury for the question and answers. And then towards the end, we'll announce the winner. Can I bring maybe the juries up here right now? Thank you very much. So before I introduce the founders, I'd like the jury to, first of all, introduce themselves really quickly, who you are, which fund do you work with, and then like how many companies, what type of companies do you like?
Hello, this is Dilek Dayınlarlı from 212. I'm focused on early stage investments in emerging markets.
Hello, I'm Sahith Arteli with Connect Ventures, and we're focused on seed investments in companies across Europe.
Hi, I'm Simon Cook. I run Draper Esprit, which is a fund investing all across Europe, helping the best European companies get over to the US. We invest multi-stage.
Thank you very much. Pretty diverse from like stages and also region. So let's introduce first startup that's going to pitch. It's called Bitergia, and they do analytics and dashboard for companies. Please welcome the first team.
No, no, ¿verdad? Okay. Last minute change, so sorry. Okay. Hello, everybody. I think I have my 3 minutes now. So I'm going to present you Bitergia and what we do. The green button is this one. Okay. Everybody wants to know about unicorns. I think you already know about this thing everybody is looking for, and you are already looking for them. So I'm going to present you some of them. Maybe you already know these people in the chart, but actually all of them together is like $250 billion on investment. So if you are wondering what they have in common, I'm going to say something quite important. All of them depend, use, provide, or underneath they are using open source technologies, open technologies. I'm not going to bother you about what's open source, what's the business model behind that, or whatever, but I'm going to tell you one key point. Everything is about the community developing these technologies. If you are wondering what a community is, actually it's a group of people working together, people from different companies, even people on their spare time doing quite cool technology. And this cool technology matters because it's where the business of these companies rely on. Actually, matters too much, but IT companies nowadays, most of them are not taking care even about the communities the business depends on. Actually, even they don't know who is behind the technology that I'm using. Maybe you are using, I don't know, Hadoop or technology like that, and you don't know how much code from Google is there, for example. So maybe you already know this kind of profile in companies nowadays, the community manager, things like that, or developer advocate, people doing, maybe you are not clear idea about what he do, but actually, for example, Don Neri is working for a company that is participating in one of these communities. Actually, the company drives the community because the community produces a technology that is key for their business. Big data or whatever business you can imagine is key for them. And what are the responsibilities for Don? It's quite simple. To keep the community health, the community productivity, and increase the visibility of the community. To do that is quite easy. She needs information, so to go to the data sources, but the data sources are too many and too different. So, okay, she needs help. So she goes to the market. What's outside? Maybe you know already Black Duck Open Hub. It's a solution, but it only covers one part of the ecosystem. Or maybe Gartner, but Gartner is only providing big picture. And maybe you can hear about Bitergia. Well, already she has already know about us because since we found the company, we have been worldwide explaining in the Best World Conference how we do metrics for these people. So she goes for our website, she checks the best option for her, and now she has the data. And she is a happy customer. But OK, this is a true story. Well, actually, these are several true stories for all of our customers. Customers that are quite happy, saying good things about us, and especially, they are helping us increasing our revenues by a year, doubling our incomes since we have founded the company. So we are the next step, going to provide this technology for decision makers. So if you are happy with that, well, we are welcome you to our next. So thank you very much, and you are welcome. Oh, sorry. Do you have any question?
Yes, we have 1 minute for questions. So maybe one question from one of the jury, and then if we have additional time, we'll work on that.
Easy, please.
I didn't quite hear all of it, but I got most of it. So where are your customers are based all over the world?
Our customers, this is a funny story. We're a small company from a little town in Madrid, and all our customers are from the United States, all of them.
And you have no people over in the States. You're servicing them entirely from here.
Our service is served from Spain, actually. We go there to the conference, we meet the people there, and then we set up an agreement and start selling them the data and the reports they need to take care about their communities and their products, actually.
Do you just go after enterprise scale customers, or do you go through small, medium, large enterprise?
If you see the people that is in the chart from our company, from our customers, we go from foundations like the Linux Foundation or the OpenStack Foundation, the Wikimedia Foundation, the people behind Wikipedia.
Yeah, but how much they're not paying you very much, right? So is it large companies paying you like $10 a month or what?
No, it's like, for example, companies like Red Hat paying us something like $40,000 per year.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The next company is DarwinX. We all know that fintech and especially the financial service, it's being disrupted. And I'm very pleased to introduce DarwinX, especially because they are also like selected one of the most disruptive fintech companies in Europe. So very curious to know what you're working on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us here today. So my name is Juan Colon. I'm CEO and co-founder with DarwinX. And at DarwinX, we empower traders. And the reason we do that is because the web powers online marketplaces where independent people can make a living. If you are a talented freelancer, you can make a living through Elance. If you have a talent for art, you can make a living through Etsy. But if you have a talent to grow money by, say, 20% a year, you need investor capital. The reason for that is if you manage, say, 10 million of investor money, you grow that by 20%, you've created 2 million of profit, you keep the 20% success share, and woohoo, you've made $400,000 a year, which is a hedge fund would be making. However, for that, you need to be regulated, and there's a lot of hurdles for that. If you don't have that regulation, you're left on your own, and there's no marketplace that provides you with that capital. In that situation, if you grow money by the same 20% on your 5 peanuts of personal capital, you've made 1 peanut, which is not a sustainable business model. So just like Amazon empowered writers by making them ebooks on your Kindle, we empower traders by making them an investable asset in your pocket. There's a global niche that you wouldn't suspect of, which is really helpful for you because about 5% of any investment portfolio should be invested in assets without correlation and liquidity, and that's a lot of peanuts, 1 trillion globally, that are chasing very few assets and thus making bad returns. And that's the reason why we turn the best 3 to 5 million global traders worldwide, which is a 3 to 5 billion market globally, into a portfolio that you can invest in. It works through profit exchange. The traders are trading with a broker, competing to impress the investors, and the investors allocate capital to them. When they make a profit, they keep 80% of it, and they pay 20% to us, and we pay 15% to the trader, who thus becomes a hedge fund manager and overcomes this issue. We have a very differentiated proposition that good traders really understand, that sets us apart from our competition, and more importantly, we have gathered a lot of traction. In the year since we opened our broker, we started from 0 revenues, and we're now currently processing $2 billion of nominal per month, which equates to $60,000 per month in revenues on the brokerage side alone. But more importantly, our algorithms can tell the good traders in our community, and if you had invested in the best traders in our community over the last year, you would have made a return of about 45% on less risk than any of those indices who returned some negative money. So there's real bucks to be made here, and that's our best way to acquire customers. Because we know we can profitably invest in our own customers, we deploy our own capital. We're currently offering $2 million of seed capital to our own customers, which attracts good traders, which attracts more investors, and then we get the marketplace dynamics going and reach the hockey stick. The DarwinX team is led by the 3 founders. We have collectively 30 years' worth of experience in financial markets. We're backed by a board, including guys with Goldman Sachs and Elance. And we're now raising our Series A to accelerate our growth in Europe and Asia and to the US, deploy even more cooler technology to analyze the big data, and generally build a kick-ass operation. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
How do you acquire your traders and your customers?
Right. So, very good question. So the traders we target are really good traders who know that they need a viable business model to make a living. They need the investor capital. Because we can tell who's good and who's just lucky, we basically we've started off by deploying our own capital, which attracts the good traders, which then allows us to attract the investors, and then we prime the engine.
How much capital managed through your platform?
So we have started that, we've been on closed beta, so we've only allowed 300 investors up to now. There's about 300,000 euros of assets, but we've now invested 2 million of our own capital to prove that we can invest it without not making a loss. And if we don't make a loss at doing that, essentially it's a question of deploying 10 times that capital, 20 times that capital, and that attracts more and more traders.
Maybe one more question.
What are the asset classes that you're focused on?
So we target the most liquid asset classes globally, because that way it's a scalable business model. Right now you can trade commodities, stock indices, and foreign exchange. However, the methodology allows us to offer any futures, offered anywhere worldwide. And that's the next thing we're doing, is just piping more and more liquid assets into the platform.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very much.
Thanks.
Startup, it's from Bulgaria, and it's Imaga. And Imaga does image recognition and then use machine learning to sort of learn through the API.
CEO of Imaga. Okay, hello everybody. I'm Georgi, co-founder and CEO of Imaga. Imaga is a cloud API that enables businesses and developers to develop apps that understand images. So we suggest a set of keywords that describe the key objects and concepts of interest represented visually inside the image. So let's start first with the problem. In the last 3 years, only in the last 3 years has been taken more photos than in the whole previous history of photography. And on a daily basis, we have like 2 billion photos shared, and most of them are just forgotten in about 30 minutes because photos don't have metadata associated with them, and thus the photos are not searchable, barely useful, and even less than that, monetizable. So the problem that we tackle is to how to make these photos findable, understandable, and you can derive value out of that. The solution that we have is an automated tagging API, and it replaces the need of manual annotation of photos, which is either very time or resource consuming, and we make this process automatic, so the images after that could be searchable, or you can extract some kind of trends out of them. So here's just one example of how we suggest tags for this particular image, like dragonfly, insect, plant. In addition to the suggestion of the tags, we have something that we call auto-categorization, and it automatically assigns photos to categories. So let's say personal photos, like portrait photos, natural photos, beach photos, event and party photos, and so on. The technology behind is based on beyond state-of-the-art deep neural network learning, and we have a large set of categories, and we can suggest 30 to 40 keywords for each given image with high relevance. Among many different, I would say, exciting use cases, some of the most prominent are application in cloud services or value-added services where we enable the people to search photos based on our tagging technology, but also in advertising, in digital asset management, and in contextual advertising and user profiling. The business model is either cloud-based self-service API or enterprise that's on-premise. And I can say since we started in the beginning of this year, we already have pretty solid traffic organically from Europa, America, Latin America, and Asia. And we have several very big enterprise customers in advertising and in cloud services, with total projected revenue for that year of $300,000 US. We're just opening for Series A because we want to expand with physical presence in the US and also expand the growth of the company so we can eventually achieve our vision to be in image recognition as a service what Amazon is for web services. Last but not least, our team consists of 8 highly motivated people with expertise in software development, image recognition, content marketing, and usability. So if you're interested in our solution, I'll be happy to chat right after at the parties or tomorrow. Thank you.
Hi. Who is your customers?
Who are, in particular, or in verticals?
Like, do you have a focused customer segment? Yeah. Who are using? You say advertisement agencies, right?
So in case of the advertising agency, we have one of the biggest on the West Coast, which is serving the biggest US retailer, but I cannot disclose. In Asia, we have Seedpost, which is handling advertising campaigns for Kia, the motor cars. We also have one of the biggest telecoms in terms of profits in Europe as a cloud service provider for their end customers.
How did you acquire them? How did they come to you?
Up so far, it's always been inbound. So they found us. We're one of the very few solutions, and we rank at the top 2 or 3 positions when you type image recognition API, image tagging API, and so on. So they escalated from just inbound traffic to enterprise customers.
Okay.
Hello again. Made some good progress. We met before. You do about 3,000 objects right now, right? But what's the number of objects you need to be able to do it completely automated? Because I believe right now you still do some manual tagging, right?
Yeah. So we currently have 3,000 as the core part of the recognition. Maybe a target would be about 5 to have to increase from 85 to 95 precision. But we also have some additional keywords. So we directly recognize this is a bottle and this is a table, but then we can say bar, nightclub, and something like that, which is not part of these 3,000. They're like additional semantic related keywords.
Thank you very much. Next company is MediaSmart, a company from Spain. And we all know that who has actually have a mobile phone? No one has a mobile phone. No one's actually paying attention. But MediaSmart actually work with optimization advertising on mobile.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. MediaSmart is a mobile advertising technology company that helps advertisers reach mobile audiences effectively. Now, the advertising ecosystem can be a bit confusing, so let me just start by clarifying where we play. Publishers that have advertising inventory work with ad tech providers to help maximize their yield and make their inventory available in marketplaces. We're not one of those providers. On the contrary, we work with agencies and advertisers to enable them through our technology to buy advertising in those marketplaces and to do so in real time in a data-driven fashion and always maximizing engagement with their campaigns. The opportunity is unquestionable. While more than 60% of digital media engagement happens on mobile devices, only 15% of digital advertising budgets go to mobile. And that gap needs to be closed, and we know how it's going to be closed. It's through programmatic advertising. The real-time data-driven type of media buying that MediaSmart enables is quickly becoming the de facto way of buying media. And in 2016, actually, more than 62% of advertising is expected to be traded that way. Now, why is that gap there between audience and investment then? Well, simply because mobile technology is different from the technology that is required in desktop. And when we started in January 2012, virtually no one was applying programmatic methods to mobile. We were one of the first ones to do so, and we've used that first mover advantage quite well. We've created our own platform, proprietary platform, which is extensively proven in the marketplace and is today driving a business where more than 63% of the revenue comes from a software as a service model. That means advertisers and agencies using the platform directly. We've also established partnerships with more than 25 global players in the ecosystem, bringing to our clients unparalleled global reach. And with all of the campaigns we've run throughout this 3.5 years, we've gathered a database of more than 200 million profile users, which our clients can use for audience targeting, but which is also an invaluable input to all of our algorithms to really make the smartest decision at the point of doing the media buying. We have proven we can scale, especially since we launched the software as a service model in January 2014. And we expect to grow 200% this year, with most of that growth coming from international markets. We have achieved all this thanks to an amazing team of 15 people today who are absolutely dedicated to the cause and who know a lot about advertising and mobile. And we've done so also with relatively modest investment of €2 million to date. Thank you very much.
you. Thanks. Have you got any, who is your closest, it's a very crowded space, so who are your closest competitors?
I know, it's a crowded space. So I guess the closest would be the mobile-first DSPs, right? We don't consider the desktop-first DSPs competitors, but I would say it's a very crowded space also because a lot of people that call themselves DSP, because they buy programmatically, don't have their own technology. We were one of the first ones to have started, and we have our own technology, and often other companies build DSPs using building blocks such as ours.
Thank you very much.
Oh, that's all. Thank you.
The next startup is called Native Ad, and it's an ad server for native advertising, particularly for Spanish-speaking communities.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gorka Muñecas. I am the dreamer, founder, and CEO of Native Ad. And let me ask you a question. Raise your hand who, during the last week, clicked on purpose on a banner ad. I suppose it. Almost just a few of you. Experts say that it's more likely to be attacked by a shark than clicking a banner ad. That's why people don't like interruptions. They like content. And that's why we create Native Ad. Let me show you what we do. You can see here, this is a typical online newspaper. There are articles there, but this article here is introduced through our native advertising ad server. You can see that it has the same look and feel that the other contents around it. If you like it, you click on it, and you can consume that all the content. This is branded content. Content is created by Adidas in this case. And the great thing is that if Adidas can distribute this branded content in 1,000 publishers at the same time, just with one click, and it will appear in each publisher with the look and feel of those publishers. Native Ad joins forces with publishers to monetize their entire audience, not only on desktop, but in social networks and in mobile. Display advertising no longer works. Display advertising is broken. And that's why native advertising spending is growing very fast. Experts expect that in the next 2 years, it will get up to $9 billion just in the US market. And we also are growing very fast. Right now, we are leaders in Latin America, in Spain, and in US Hispanic. And some of the largest ad networks in those regions are working with our software as a service for native advertising. All of this is thanks to a badass team that they are in Mexico City, in Miami, in New York, and in Madrid. And most of them are developers. Right now, we are looking for 2 million for start selling in Brazil, in Europe, and in Middle East. So welcome to the post-banner era. Welcome to programmatic native advertising era. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
So, but what is it exactly that you guys do? Do you write the ads, or are you
No,
just
we are just technology. We are a platform. We sell, our clients, our customers are ad networks. They have their clients are agencies, and they affiliate publishers. They work through our technology. So it's a software as a service. And our revenue, we have a revenue share model. From 15 to 20% of their sales are for us, just technology. That's why we can scale very fast, because if we want to go, for example, to Indonesia, we don't need to know which are the agencies in Indonesia or the publishers. We give that technology to the ad networks in Indonesia. That's why now we can scale very, very fast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
last but not least, the company is Work Today. And Work Today is a mobile app that helps connect temporary worker with different type of businesses.
Okay. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Álvaro Curiel, co-founder of Work Today. I want you to remember the last day that you were facing a very important day in your company, and someone called you saying something like, sorry, boss, I can't go to work today. And you say, don't worry, get well soon. What you really want to say is, I'm going to kill you, because you know that day you are going to lose a lot of money, and probably you are going to lose some clients. This is your face that day. According to company's opinion, absenteeism is the largest barrier to be more productive. All in Spain, it represents an opportunity cost of 55 billion euro every year because of services or goods not provided. It's a huge problem worldwide. Being more affected, the companies in the services sector dedicated to cleaning services, hospitality and catering, retail, transport, logistics, etc. With Work Today, you can post a time job offer in seconds, sending the alert only to that part-time workers, students, unemployed, that perfectly fit the requirements about experience and geolocation for an immediate incorporation. The companies see the candidates that have said yes to his offer, ranked according to distance, experience, and other managers' valuations, because it is a must to rate each other after each service. We launched our app 6 months ago. We are over 22,000 candidates, more than 800 companies publishing job offers. We have a monthly average increase of over 40% for both actors. Our business model is pay-per-use. We get a €5 commission fee every time a company selects a worker. Talking about only the 50% of the workdays produced by absenteeism, we face a market of over 4 billion euro for these areas. We have competition, of course, but we are the only company that provides a just-in-time solution to the problem. It fits so well our users and client needs that they don't stop to recommend us. Our biggest asset are our candidates, but we have a great team too with more than 30 years of experience in business intelligence, marketing, sales, recruitment, finance, internationalization, and management. We have great cash and no cash supporters, and like them, we want you to trust in us to become the #1 and help millions of people and millions of companies to be more productive and earn more money. Because you know that millions of people take a taxi every day. Millions of people travel every day, but you will agree with me that many more millions of people work every day. So corporates, investors, everybody, you join us? Thank you.
What is the use cases that you have now? Like
now we are a few people. We are very focused on hospitality and catering and retail shops. People for congresses, promoters, waiters, bartenders, cookers, something like that.
Did you say?
Sorry?
So as a very local marketplace business, you really need to get critical mass in a very local area quickly.
Sorry, understand?
Sorry, it's a very local business. You need people locally quickly.
Yeah.
So you need a lot of
quickly.
people in a local area quickly. So
Yeah, a lot of people, yeah. Maybe we think about 30, 40 people around each business unit. It's okay. But business units used to be very close, one to the others. We have very companies all together, restaurants all together, hotels all together. So we need people, but we need good people as the people that we have in our app.
Do you need the people before the jobs, or which comes first, the jobs or the people?
At the same time. Okay. We think we are a marketplace. We need to show offers to people, and candidates come along. We need to invest money in getting companies, getting customers, and we are investing in getting candidates, but like every marketplace, you need a good offer to get good users.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
First of all, congratulations on the 6 teams who were finalists and pitched on today's session. And most importantly, also thank you very much for the jury today. Thank you.
Hey, gee, somebody turn me on. Thanks, guys. Thanks a million. Cheers. Thanks a million. Folks, that is it for our 2 days. So far, so good at South Summit. Big round of applause for everybody. It's amazing to see the quality of the startups just get better and better every single year. And for those of you that have been following us, you'll have seen in the last 3 years, the South Summit finalists have raised over 200 million euros between them in investment. So they are killing it. And we have high hopes for these finalists that we've seen here today as well, so well done. Folks, that is it for today. But come back bright and early tomorrow. We have a big day tomorrow. Most of you will have seen the announcements. We have full stage content on the first floor and outside at the Startup School, the innovation stage, and the next big thing. Arena right here will be closed until about 11 a.m. because we'll be preparing to receive His Majesty the King, who's doing the award ceremony tomorrow. So we are thrilled to have him. There will be limited seating here tomorrow morning, so do get in as early as you can. And of course, we'll have super exciting workshops on all the other stages. And the other final bit of good news is we're throwing a party. We're throwing the first South Summit party right here at Las Ventas. So please join us. All the bars are set up outside. We're going to rock up with some of the music. We're here till 10:30 p.m. So please stick around, have a beer, and do some business. Thanks, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.
Well, it's 1 for the money, 2 for the show. 3 getting ready now, go get